Yo guys, welcome back. So it's been some time since I've been streaming, but yeah, I'm back. So basically, in this live stream, we'll just be having a look at all the MCQ questions. I decided instead of just doing them each separately, I just do them at one go. I think it'll just be much better doing it that way. So we'll be going through MCQ questions of all topics. We'll just do the past paper questions, and then if you have any issue in a certain topic, we can have a look at that. So that is what we're going to be having a look at right now or today. Okay, so yeah, with that, as simple as that, we'll just do the questions and see where we go from there. I don't have a specific plan of this stream. I'll just be doing as many papers as I can. There's no certain time limit I have. I'll just be trying to do as many as I can. So I think the exam is on 8th or 9th, one of them. I don't remember. I think 9th. So yeah, this is just early preparation. I'll be uploading this stream after I'm done, so you can always have a look at that. So as you can see on your screen, we're going to start off with October-November 2020. Okay, and then we'll just be doing random papers from there. So we'll just keep doing questions here and there, and yeah, I'll try to do as many as I can. You can follow along, you can do them with me, or as I said, you can join me later on the live stream or after I upload this. Okay, this is basically revision. I'll be going through every topic in the past paper questions. That's the best way to revise. Right, so yeah, I'm hoping you guys can hear me. Can someone in the chat let me know if you guys can hear me? Because I'm no more using I'm using some other stream settings, hence why there could be problems, but I'm not sure because I'm using another mic, hence why there might be some issues. But can you guys hear me? Let me just put up the chat 1 second. So yeah, okay, perfect. I can hear you fine. Right, so that's the agenda for today, and yeah, I think from there we can just keep doing questions, and let's see how far we can reach. Okay, so you can do this with me, you can do this along with me, or as I said, I'll be uploading the stream later, so anytime, but I'll be streaming throughout the day, so you can come at any time. I know you have the other science MCQs that you have to also focus on, so completely understandable. Okay, but let's start off with this paper that you can see on your screen. Okay, this is the October-November 2020 paper. It's a random paper that I just picked. It's not on any particular order, but yeah, so this is the 2020 October-November variant 2. Okay, variant 2 of this. So let's begin without wasting any time. Let's see how many I can do, but again, as I said, I'll try my best to do as many as I can. Okay, so let's begin. We start off with number one. Number one, it says, what causes economic agents to make choices? Okay, what are economic agents? Now, in economics, economic agents, we have different categories. Okay, producers are economic agents. Then we have consumers. We have the government. These are all people that are economic agents, and these economic agents make decisions about the economy depending on the economy, on where the economy is at the current rate. They decide, like for example, the government, if there's inflation, the government will come in and they will see what to do. But what causes these economic agents to make choices? Let's have a look at this. Limited needs and wants, the first one. That's not possible, because actually limited wants is good for us. There's something called the scarcity, right? The scarcity is when there's unlimited wants, right? In this case, it's saying limited wants. Wants are simply the desire of one person, like I want an expensive car. But again, you see, the thing is that we don't have enough resources to satisfy everyone's wants. Hence why we need these economic agents. Okay, we need these economic agents. Okay, so that's the main thing. So this is wrong because we have unlimited wants and not limited. So that is wrong. Okay. The existence of finite resources. That's correct. Because finite resources, these are resources that are, not unlimited. We have to, preserve these resources. We don't have unlimited resources. Okay. And hence why these economic agents, all these ones, all these, they need to decide, which is the best, choice to make when we have, limited resources or finite resources. Okay, so that is correct. So that's what economic agents do. Then the existence of free goods. What are free goods? Free goods are simply goods that have no opportunity cost. For example, an example I would give you here is sunlight. Okay, we are not paying for sunlight and we have unlimited sunlight, right? And there's no opportunity cost. Opportunity cost is when you have two things and you have to decide which one to produce or which one to consume. But in sunlight, it's free of charge, so you're losing nothing. But again, that is not a problem, hence why economic agents will not have to worry about that. Then we move on to the market mechanism. Who worries about the market mechanism? Okay, the economic agents do not have to make choices on this. The market mechanism is simply between producers and consumers. Depending on the good, depending on so on, such factors, we look at stuff related to the the market mechanism, or the other name is called price mechanism. So in this question, what you need to know, economic agents are participants in the economy that engage in specializing in consumption, production, exchange, and the examples, as I said, is consumers, producers, and the government. Okay, now these economic agents have to make choices because they have unlimited wants but limited resources, so that they can satisfy people's wants. Okay, so that is what you need to know in this. Okay, so the answer here would be B, because of the limited resources. Because we have limited resources, we need to have a look at how we can efficiently allocate this. Okay, so we move on to the next question. Which combination of a factor of production and its factor income is not correct? Okay, so we have our economic agents, the producers. The economic agents, as I previously mentioned, they are the consumers, producers, and the government. Now, they all have different roles. It can depend, right? Producers can be economic agents, as in they need to wisely use the resources because of the unlimited ones. For the government, they need to imply tax so that, so many people do not overconsume a certain product. All that is economic agents. So they are all all together. So that's what you need to have a look at. Okay, number 2, it says which combination of factors of production and the factor income is not correct. Okay, so we have 4 factors of production, which is sell, and I like to remember it like that. So we have capital, enterprise, land, and we have labor. Now the rewards for each of them. For capital it's what? Interest. For enterprise, it's profit. Okay, this is just simple basic stuff, right? What is land? For land, it is rent, and for labor, it is wages. Okay, these are the factor income. So let's see which one is correct, which one is wrong. You just need to know that one. But let's see. So capital, interest, that is correct. Enterprise, profit, that is correct. Labor, dividends and wages, they're the same thing. So that is which combination of factor of production is not correct? Okay, no, dividends and wages are not the same thing. Okay, so therefore that is the answer C. Okay, that is the answer. There's a difference between dividends and wages, but you really don't need to know that. Just labor is wages. Okay, so land is rent, that is correct. Okay, so the answer is C. Quite straightforward question. Many of the first 10 questions are just like a warm-up, they're quite straightforward. They talk about microeconomics, but sometimes even macroeconomics. Okay, move on to the next question. Here we have a PPC curve, one of the more easier questions. Usually PPC curves, they talk about the shifts, what happens when this shifts to this shift, and so on and so forth. Okay, so it says the diagram shows a production possibility curve for a country, and this country is moved from position X to position Y, so it's going down, right? It's shifting, okay, from position X to position Y. It then says what is the most likely reason for this change. Now you can see here there's no outward shift, there's no inward shift, so nothing related to resources is happening. But we used to produce, let's see, we used to produce more capital goods at point X. But then we are shifting now. We are shifting down. So now we are producing more consumer goods, okay, and less capital goods. Okay, that is going down. So it says, what's the most likely reason for this change? Let's see. Firms have decided to increase investment in technology. Now, if there was an increase in investment, right? If there was an increase in investment, this would make the productive potential increase. So there will be a shift outwards. Then here it says new economic resources have been discovered. This again will mean we have increased the productive potential of the economy, so it will shift the PPC outwards. So there's nothing related to along the lines. Okay, then we have the next one. It says the government has brought about an increase in living standards. Okay, they have brought about an increase in living standards. What does that mean? Maybe they could produce more consumer goods because it's living standards. So this will be the right answer. So capital goods doesn't involve anyone related to living standards, but then consumer goods do, so hence there could be a shift from X to Y. That could be a reason. The government has encouraged long-term economic growth. Again, this will not matter with the PPC curve because it doesn't really, show anything on the PPC curve. Okay, so that's again quite straightforward. Yeah. Hopefully there's no any questions. I'll be answering the questions as we go on. So if that is the case, right? Okay, we move on to the next question. It says, what is an example of a macroeconomic aim? So in macroeconomics, what you need to know is that we have economic growth, right? We have living standards, right? We have poverty. These are all aims. We have BOP. These are all aims that the government does. Employment, right? These are all the ways or examples of why the government would do this or that. Okay, so these are all called macroeconomic aims. Microeconomic aims is all dealing with the producers and the consumers. So let's read this. It says to create and maintain full employment. Yeah, that's correct. That is one of the aims. The government wants to have full employment. That is one of the ways. So that's correct. Let's look at the other one. To improve efficiency in manufacturing sector of the economy. That it doesn't matter, right? That it doesn't matter. That's not a macroeconomic aim. Okay, that's not a macroeconomic aim. To provide consumers with greater information when buying goods and services. Again, that doesn't really matter with the economy. Macroeconomics is when it deals with the entire economy. Okay, that's how you differentiate between microeconomics. Microeconomics, producers, consumers, they care about price mechanism, all that type of stuff. They care about all those types of stuff, demand, so on and so forth. Okay, so that is that. To encourage greater, okay, someone has asked what will result point to move within the PPC curve. Now you see, the only reason or the only time when it moves within is when nothing has affected the resources and nothing has affected that. So for example, the government has decided to do something which will result to more consumer goods or more capital goods. That's the only time it will shift within. Okay, but for example, if there's a natural disaster, meaning resources are getting lower, right, meaning there will be a shift inwards. But when resources are not affected, that is the only time when it will shift within the PPC curve. Okay, so that's what you need to differentiate. So when there is nothing related to the resources changing, that is when it will shift. But for example, if I decide to shift all that capital good I've been using to consumer good, that will shift it. Okay, so that's a simple explanation I can come up with. Okay, so we move on to number 5. It says, why might a market economy fail to achieve the best use of scarce resources? What are scarce resources? Now, scarce resources are simply resources that are limited in supply. That means we don't have a lot of them, right? An example would be gold. Okay, they are scarce. We don't have unlimited gold, do we? But the wants or the desire for gold is high. So that's where the economic agents would come and they would decide, how can we allocate gold properly? Okay, that would just be an example that I can give you. So let's see here. Let's look at the options. It says, first of all, consumers may lack information about which good to buy. Okay, now here this could be the answer. Okay, because you see, why might a market economy fail to achieve the best use of the scarce resources is when they lack information. Okay, when they don't know which good to buy, they don't understand the value of the good, that is when the consumers, or that's when the economy will fail. But let's look at the other options. Okay, now let's look at the key terms of each of this. First of all, what is a market economy? A market economy is when resources are owned and controlled by the private individuals. Okay, these are resources that are owned and controlled by private individuals. Okay, and this is when there's exchange and profit is the main objective. Information failure. What is information failure? This is a type of market failure. Okay, and when you studied market failure, right, we studied that lack of information is one of the factors. Okay, so and lack of information will lead to it talks about economic decisions, which means the economy is failed to achieve the best use of scarce resources. Then we have what is market failure? Market failure is when there is inefficient use of scarce resources, or it's when the price mechanism or market allocation fails to allocate resources efficiently. Okay, so with that definitions being said, let's see whether we can find out the answer. So we said already lack of information is correct. So this is more over correct, but let's look at all these other ones. The merit goods are underconsumed. That doesn't really matter with this, because this is a commodity that is available to all members. Okay, this is available to everyone. If they're underconsumed, overconsumed, it doesn't really matter. Okay, then we have public goods are overconsumed. Again, this is non-rival, right? This is it doesn't really matter, because individuals or firms have to have, really it doesn't matter with anything related to scarce resources. Okay, so there's nothing about this. Okay, and then most resources are owned by the government. Again, this will not impact the entire economy to fail the scarce resources. So this is the answer. So for this question, we look at the market failure. Okay, we look at the market failure, and then we look at which are the factors that are affecting to the economy to not achieve the best use of the scarce resources. Okay, so scarce resources, we have an example. I'll give an example. We have gold, we have silver. If the economy does not have information on which one to buy, which one is scarce, right? If people just keep buying gold, then it'll keep getting scarce and scarce and scarce. But if demerit goods are underconsumed, it really doesn't matter. Okay, they cannot be scarce actually. Okay, it really does not matter. Okay, so yeah, that's the main thing that you need to understand in this question. Okay, we move on to another question. Okay, these types of graph questions, let's see, sometimes they are a bit complicated. Some of these graph questions at times they could be complicated, but let's see. It says the diagram shows the global market for copper with an equilibrium at point X. So where is it right now? Right now it is at point X. Okay, it is at point X, meaning it is at equilibrium. Equilibrium is when it's in the middle, demand and supply meet together, it's there at that point. It says which point represents the new equilibrium after the copper producers cost increase and there is a rapid economic growth. So let's understand the question. It says the copper producers cost increase. Cost increases. What happens when cost increases? What happens when cost increases? When cost increases, supply decreases, right? When cost increases, supply decreases. We know that. That's one of the factors, because if cost increases, profit will be less. Okay, and then it says there is rapid global economic growth. Okay, so supply decreases. Okay, supply decreases. Is that a shift to the right, shift to the left? That is shift to the left. So, and producer cost will shift the supply curve from S1 to S2 because there's a rise in costs. But what is this? What does it mean by economic growth? This means that the demand will change. Okay, this means if there is economic growth, the average people's income will increase. So this will shift the demand curve from D1 to D2. Okay, from D1, which is right here, D1 to D2. So I'll shift this side. But again, because there's a rise in cost, it'll go shift to the left here. So this will be the answer. Okay, so that should be the answer. But sometimes they're challenging. So here supply will change, here demand will change. Okay, yeah, but it'll be a shift to the left because cost increases, right? And if cost increases, then there's a shift to the left and producers don't want costs to increase. Okay. Move on to our next question. It says the diagram shows the supply curve for a good. So we have a supply curve, simple supply curve, and we are supposed to calculate the PES. Such a simple question. So we have PES. How do you calculate PES? That is the change, okay, the change in the quantity over the change in price. Here it will be quantity supplied because it is price elasticity of that. Okay, hence why that is the case. Okay, so we move on. Yeah, so we just use this formula and just get the answers. Okay, it's moving from, okay, it's going from $10 to $20. So $10 to $20 will mean $100 to 140, sorry, 100 units to 140 units. So how do you calculate change? You write, this is the new value minus the old value over the old value times 100, divided by the new value minus the old value over the old value times 100. So I will use my calculator and get the answer. And the answer to this is 2, because it is 40 over 20. Okay, so the answer here is 2. So the answer is D. Why does demand curve shift to the left? Because demand reduces, right? So demand will, if demand falls, it shifts to the left. But in the previous question, right, we were looking at the copper producers. We're looking at market of copper, right? It doesn't matter. So you see, even if demand falls, the supply will be affected. The supply will still fall, okay? And hence why the best answer, okay, you can't do here, okay? Okay, because sorry, the demand will increase. No, the demand doesn't shift to the left. The demand is increasing. Okay, let me explain this again. The demand is increasing. So when demand increases, it shifts to the right. Because of the economic growth, it shifts to the right. So it can't go this side. It has to go either this side. It has to go at B. But remember, the supply is also decreasing, which is shift to the left. So it meaning it will go this side, up here. Okay, I don't know if that makes sense. So hence it will be A, because at point A, the demand will shift to the left, or shift to the right, sorry, and supply will also shift to the left. So it's A. Okay, does that make sense? Because demand will shift to the right and supply will shift to the left. So the best answer will be A. Now, why will demand shift to the right? Demand will shift to the right because of economic growth. What happens during economic growth? The demand is in high. Okay, that's the main point of this curve. I don't know if you guys understand. There's no fall in demand. The demand will increase whenever there's economic growth. Demand increases. That's actually one of the factors. Okay, when there's economic growth, demand will increase for the products, and because there is a rapid global economic growth, demand will increase, meaning shift to the right, and because costs increase, there will be a shift to the left. So the answer will be A. Okay, so hopefully you understand now. Okay, it says which task is not a function of a trade union? A trade union is simply an organization. If cost rises, why can't we increase the price? You see, one of the factors, if you remember, one of the factors of supply, okay, is that when there is a rise in the price of any product, okay, the profit is not there. Sorry, if costs rise, what the meaning of cost rises is that the cost of production becomes expensive, and if that becomes expensive, we can't get profit. Okay, and it's just simply in the question. Of course, you see, economics, there can be what ifs. We can't increase the price. What if we can do this? Of course we can, but right now we just follow the question, because the question told us that there is a rise in cost. That means there will be a shift to the left. As simple as that. You can't say what if that, because if you say that, then there could also be inflation, right? But that's too deep. Okay, that's too deep. You can't just keep, in MCQ questions, you just follow the question. If they say this happens, then follow that. Don't say what if. Okay. Usually that's always where people make mistakes, because these MCQs, the problem with the MCQs, the way they make them is what if this, what if that. But you just have to simply follow the question. Okay, because many times in these MCQ questions, like, all answers could be correct if you say what if, what if, what if. Okay, but never look at the what ifs, just follow the question. Okay, like in this question, what is not a function of a trade union? It could still be a function of a trade union, yeah, but we have to look at the best possible answer. Okay, so that's something you need to learn in economics. In these papers, the way they make these questions, they're quite tricky. You just follow the question, because there could be a lot of what ifs, what ifs, what ifs, but just follow the question. Okay, and that's where people lose marks, because they say, they think too much, and that's where they get wrong. That's where they overcomplicate themselves and get it wrong. Okay, let's see. What is not a function of a trade union? As I was explaining, a trade union is simply an organization that looks out for the workers, their well-being, the working environment, the wages, so on and so forth. Okay, that's what the trade union does. It's just an organization, and usually these trade unions, they take a fee. Okay, so let's see. It says agreeing the minimum number to be employed on a particular job. They have no say to this. They have no say to this. This is the company's decision. They can't say you have to hire this much. There's nothing like that. Okay, some of these answers, you just have to make sense out of them. So that one can't be. Okay, move on to the next one. Deciding on the level of national minimum wage. Yep, that is correct, and this is actually set by the government. So if the trade unions work together, they can allow the government to set a minimum wage. Okay, this is not a function. Sorry, this is all functions. This is not a function, because this is set by the government. Okay, this is set by the government. Now, a trade union could put a minimum number of employed, but also could not. So here again, the same thing would be what if. Okay, because sometimes the trade unions can have no say, but then again, this question looks like it's not a function. Okay, so that means this could be a possibility, but you see, this B would be would not be a function. It would be the best possible answer. A could be possible, maybe, if the trade unions, but actually a trade union cannot decide how many people to employ. That's according to the company. But again, you see, these types of questions, you just have to look for the best possible answer. Okay, and deciding minimum wage is done by the government. Trade union cannot do anything. Negotiating working hours and condition of workers, that can be done by the trade union. Providing legal advice, again, that could be done by the trade union. Okay, so again, look at the best possible answer. Sometimes also read the question. Okay, it's not a function, not a function. Okay, so move on to the next question. It says, what does not have an effect on wages in a free market economy? A free market economy is when we have only producers and consumers. Okay, so this is when we have producers and consumers. Yeah, okay, so we only have producers and we only have consumers. So what will not affect the wages in this place? So let's see. Now, in a free market economy, the government is not intervening or allocating resources. Okay, and there is no regulation aimed at intervening for business matters. So it's all done by price mechanism. It's all done by producers and consumers. Okay, so anything related to the government will be wrong in this question. Okay, so let's see. Danger levels in the workplace. Okay, that could be an effect. So this is wrong. Government regulations. We said in a free market economy there is no government regulation, so this is wrong. There is no government regulations in a free market economy, hence why government regulations is the answer. Quick, simple. The number of people willing and able to work, again, that could be an effect. The years of training, that could be an effect. If you're more experienced, you have higher wages. It's as simple as that. Okay, so government, anything related to the government, not involved here. Okay, is not involved. Not involved there. Okay, we move on to question 10. Okay, it says here, the table shows household spending changes with income. Okay, so we have someone earning 3,000, they're spending 3,150, and there's so on and so forth. It's telling us what is the lowest level of income at which savings are positive. Okay, now how are you supposed to do this question? Okay, is we just calculate how much they earn versus how much they spend. Okay, and whichever is the positive balance, that will mean they can save. Okay, so let's see. Okay, give me a second, guys. Let me go get my calculator again, and then yeah, just give me a second, and then I'll be back. Okay, yeah, fine. So got it. So okay, so let's do the calculations. We start off. We get someone earns 3,000 as income, and then they spend 3,150. So that means they are in a negative balance. They're in a negative balance of 150. Okay, negative 150. So they cannot save because they're spending more than how much they earn. Okay, the next one again, I think it will be a negative balance of 75. So again, here they cannot save because they have another negative balance. Here they have a positive balance. Okay, so here we have a positive balance, so here they could save. Okay, here we have 3,900 minus 3,825, so here it's 75. Then here it's how much it's here, 4,200 minus 4,050, it's 150. But again, it says at which is the lowest income. So these are all highest incomes, right? They have a positive balance, but they all are highest income. So we have to look at the one which is the lowest, which was 3,600. Because at 3,600, they have the lowest income and they have a positive savings. So this would be the answer, 3,600. These all have positive, but they have high income. Right? They have a higher income, and we are supposed to look at the lowest income of savings, which are positive. So this is a straightforward question. So we have to look at the one with the lowest income, which is 3,600, and they have a positive balance that they could save. Okay, so over to the next question. It says, what can a central bank increase in order to reduce consumer borrowing? Consumer borrowing. What affects consumer borrowing? We look at factors like interest. I think that's the biggest factor that affects for borrowing. Okay, so in this case here, anything related to interest rate, or maybe there could be another factor, I don't know, maybe, but it should be interest rate already without even reading the question. So I'm just going to say interest rate. Exchange rate doesn't matter, government spending doesn't matter, commercial bank deposits do not matter. Okay, now just quick definitions. What is a central bank? This is a monetary authority and major regulatory of bank in the country. Okay, and then commercial banks, they provide retail banking services like deposits, so on and so forth. Then what is interest? Okay, sometimes some people get confused with what is interest. So interest, right, interest, what you need to know about interest is that the interest is how much you have to pay the bank if you take their money. Okay, if I'm borrowing a certain amount of value, I have to pay the bank a bit of money. Okay, because that's how they operate. They're giving me money, so I have to give them something in return, or else why would they give me money? Right, that's how the bank works. That is what interest is. And if the bank increases the interest, then people will not borrow because they will have to pay more. Okay, that's the simple explanation to this. Okay, it says the table shows the outputs and total costs of a firm, of a small firm. Okay, so here we have the output, here we have the total cost, and we are supposed to calculate average fixed costs. Now, how do you calculate average fixed costs? Okay, average fixed costs is the total fixed cost over the output. So some way we have to first of all calculate the, okay, they've given us the total cost, so we do the total cost divide by the output. So it's as simple as that. Okay, so that is what we are supposed to do. Okay, so the total fixed costs, okay, over the output, and that will give us the thing. And they've said, what is the average fixed cost of producing 10,000 units, of 10,000 units, okay, of 10,000 units. So how am I supposed to do this? So for the first one, I think it might be even the first one, because 50,000 divided by 10,000 is $5. So I think it should be, the answer should be this, okay. But you could take any value, you'll get the same answer, okay. But the total cost is 50,000, or the fixed cost, sorry, this is the total fixed cost, okay. The total fixed cost is 50,000. How much am I outputting? The output is 10,000. This would mean it would be $5. So the answer is $5, okay. That is the explanation to this. So fixed cost is constant, okay, at each level of output, but as the output increases, the average fixed cost decreases, okay. So the reason why I'm taking 50,000 is because the output is 0, and that means fixed cost is constant. So when output is 0, the only cost that exists is fixed cost, okay. That's the reason why we have to take 50,000, because at this point when the output is 0, the only cost here is fixed cost. Now fixed cost will be the same no matter the production, okay. Whether I'm making a loss, whether I'm making a profit, fixed costs are the same, okay. For example, an example I can give you is rent is the same throughout the month. No matter how much profit I make, I will still keep paying 50,000 rent. I will pay every month 50,000, 50,000, 50,000, okay. At month one, when the output is 0, the only cost I'll have is the rent. It will only be 50,000. And remember, to calculate average fixed cost, I will simply do the fixed cost, the total fixed cost divided by the output, hence why the answer is $5, okay. These extra values are just here to confuse you, okay, hence why they've given it. But remember, fixed cost is always constant in the start, that's why we use that value, okay. So that is why we use that value. Okay, another question on this. So if you have any, sometimes these calculations are a bit tricky, but let's see. A firm has fixed costs of $1,000. The table shows the variable cost at different levels of output. So we have the outputs, we have the variable cost. If the goods are sold for $500 each, how much profit will be made from the sale of 4 units? Okay, so we're selling them for how much? $500, okay. First of all, you need to know the formulas, okay. How do you calculate total costs? To calculate total costs, we simply do fixed costs plus variable costs, okay. So fixed costs plus variable costs, okay. Fixed cost plus variable costs. Now what is variable cost? Before we even go to that, what is variable cost? Variable cost is a cost that varies according to the level of output, and we have talked about fixed cost. Fixed costs are the same. An example would be rent. I will still keep paying $50,000 rent no matter how much I do, okay. Why did I not do 600,000 divided by 10,000? I just explained it, right? You see, let me go back to that question. I explained it. You see, fixed cost is the same, okay, throughout. Now you see in here, this 600,000, there could be many other costs, okay, not only fixed costs. So we cannot use this value, but in the first value, in this first value, right, in this first value, we have 0 output. And why do we have a cost? If we have 0 output, why do we have a cost? Maybe that would help you understand. If we are not producing anything, why do we have a cost? Okay, why do we have a cost if we're producing nothing? Okay, there's no any cost for producing anything. Why do I still have a cost? That might answer your question. That might help you understand. Okay, I hope you understand it, because you see, if we're producing 0 units, why do we have 50,000 cost? That 50,000 is the fixed cost, meaning rent. Rent is not part of output. Example, I rent a warehouse for $50,000, and then I start producing the output. Then this additional cost is called the variable costs. So in this 100,000 we have fixed cost and we have other costs as well together. So we cannot find the average fixed cost with other costs. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So with fixed costs, even if the output is 0, we still have fixed costs. Okay, I'm hoping that makes sense. Okay, or you can just ask yourself, if we have 0 output, why do we have $50,000? That $50,000 is called fixed costs. Okay, that's why. And the formula for fixed costs is $50,000 divided by the output to find the average fixed cost. Okay, back to explaining this. Hopefully you understood that. Okay, so total cost is the fixed cost over variable cost. I'm hoping you understand what fixed cost is now. Fixed cost is when the cost of your production is the same throughout. Okay, if I'm paying rent, I'm giving this example again and again. I'm paying rent, it will always be the same every month, no matter how much I'm producing. With variable cost, on the other hand, variable cost is a cost that varies. Okay, it keeps changing depending on the output, because we have factors like electricity, factors like raw materials. For example, if I output 50,000 goods, will I still have the same amount of resources than I had when I produced 10,000? Because resources could become more expensive as time goes, isn't it? So the variable cost could depend. Then electricity could increase. Maybe if I'm producing a lot of output, I have to pay a lot of electricity. Okay, so before we get into this question, you need to understand the difference between fixed costs and variable costs. Okay, so fixed costs, they're fixed, just coming from the name. Variable costs, they vary, again coming from the name. Okay, so fixed cost like rent, it stays the same no matter the output. Variable cost, it depends on the output. Okay, next we move on. So what's the total cost here? What is the total cost here? It says we have fixed cost 1,000. We have fixed cost 1,000, and it says how much profit will be made for 4 units. So the variable cost is 350. So it'll be 1,350. Okay, we first calculate total cost. Okay, we calculate total cost. Now what do we do next? We need to calculate revenue, we need to calculate profit, because the question is asking us how much profit will be made. Okay, and profit can only be related with revenue. Okay, and then revenue, how to calculate revenue? Revenue is price times quantity. Okay, so what's the price of if each good is sold? It says it is $500. So $500 times 4, okay, is how much we will make for 4 units, which is what, 2,000. Okay, it's 2,000. It's telling us how much profit will be made. So how much profit will be made? This is the total cost, and this is how much I'll be making. So this minus this will give us the profit. Let me use my calculator. 2,000 minus 1,350, which is 650. So the answer is 650. Did you guys understand? So what is, if you guys do accounts, what I simply did is I calculated how much is the costs, the total cost of producing that good, and I found it was 1,350. Then I found out if each good was sold for $500 4 times, that would be 2,000. Then 2,000 minus the total cost is how much I earn. Okay, it's like expenses is 1,350, income or revenue is 2,000. So I do the revenue minus, if you do accounts, revenue minus cost of sales, for example. It's kind of like a I can't relate them together, but that's a type of example. Okay, so here we have a few confusing questions. That's why I chose this paper. Okay, because so many guys struggle with variable costs, fixed costs, but it's really not the hard ones when you understand how everything works. Okay, so just relate everything. If you want to calculate profit, you need to find revenue. Okay, profit, you need to find revenue. How do you find revenue? Quantity times the price. Okay, so we move on to the next question. I'm hoping there's no question now. I'm hoping I answered all your questions, but if you still have any question, let me know. I'm not going to move forward because you see, fixed cost, variable cost, they can be confusing, and I know they can be confusing if you don't understand what they mean. Okay, but I think now people have understood, right? but we'll be doing more questions throughout, so don't worry. We'll try to do as many questions as we can. Okay, so we move on to the next question. Okay, it says firm X supplies bricks and decides to merge with firm Y. So we're having firm X merging with firm Y, who also supply bricks. So bricks is the same good at the same place. So it's the same stage of production, okay, and the same product, which is bricks. Which one is that? How did you find fixed costs? For the previous question, fixed cost is it was when output is 0 and there was a cost. That is how I found fixed cost. In this question, it says fixed cost. It's in the question. It says $1,000. Okay. In this question, it says $1,000 here. Okay. So when it's the same stage of production, the same product, that means it is horizontal. That means it is horizontal. Why can I not write horizontal? But let's define all the other ones. What is backward vertical? Okay, what is backward vertical? Backward vertical is when a firm merges with another firm in the same industry, but with a stage of production which is before. Okay, that is what we mean with that. So same product. Okay, for example, I'm still producing bricks, but someone is making the bricks and someone is maybe, I don't know, assembling the bricks or something like that. So there's different stage of production, but the same product. With conglomerate is different stage of production, different product. Okay, this one you just need to know the definitions and then it's quite straightforward. Okay, is that okay? Yeah, should be okay. This one is quite straightforward. Okay, move on to the next question. It says, who owns a public sector organization? Who owns a public sector organization? Okay, public sector organization, that's the government, isn't it? Public sector, government. Public sector, people don't care about the profit. The main difference between public sector, private sector, they care about the profit. With public sector, they do not care about the profit. Okay, and their main purpose is so that everyone's gets satisfied, everyone's well-being is fine. Okay, whether their health is fine, it's all done. Okay, so that's done by the government. Now, what are two aims that a government normally pursues when managing the performance of a whole economy? So here I think we're looking at macroeconomics aims, another way to say macro. Okay, so we're saying here what are the two aims that a government normally pursues when managing the performance of the whole economy. So here we have macroeconomic aims and we're just looking at which macroeconomic aims it is. Okay, so let's see. Now the first one, to encourage an increase in the production and to prevent high inflation. That is correct. It looks correct to me, unless maybe there is another good answer, but this looks like a good one. But again, you see, in economics, always read all of the answers, because if an answer is better than the other, pick it. Okay, to ensure no one is unemployed and to reduce exports. Not to reduce exports, we actually want to increase exports. It's always good for an economy if we increase exports, so this is wrong. To give everyone equal incomes, okay, that is correct, and to increase government revenue. Okay, not a must. Okay, this answer would be still better. So this is wrong. Okay, this answer, the first one, will still be better. Increase in production will mean economic growth rises, which will ultimately mean the government revenue increases, so on and so forth, blah blah blah. Employment increases, revenue increases, income increases. So the first answer still looks best, not this one. Okay, it's not an objective to have more government revenue. What's the point of having more government revenue when you're not spending? So that's wrong. To protect the environment, that could be right, but to reduce an interest is not an economic objective. It's something that would make you achieve the economic objective. Okay, so that one's quite straightforward. So the answer is A, because that's the best possible answer. Alright, we move on. What is most likely to be the responsibility of a central government? So we have two types of central government. Okay, this is not about bank, this is about central government. So let's see. It says the provision of immigration officials at the airport. I think that also might be correct, because this is a public good. Okay, and this is done by the government, isn't it? Provision of security cameras in shopping center, this would be done by the shopping center people, so not necessarily. Provision at a bank, this is again done by the bank. At the train, again done by the train. So this is a public good. The airport is not going to give you the provision of immigration. Okay, it just makes the most sense out of all of them, right? It just makes the most sense out of all of them. Okay, we move on. Okay, it says the table shows the tax that an individual would pay at different levels. Okay, so let's see. When I'm earning $10,000, I'm paying zero tax. Wow! Imagine there was something like this. That the higher the income, the less the tax you pay. Damn, that would be weird. Okay, but anyway, no one can always pay zero tax. But if you've noticed, when there's an increase in income, there's an increase in tax. What type of tax is this? This is progressive. Progressive tax increases with your income. But let's define the other ones. What is corporation tax? Corporation tax is tax on profits, not the income. Here we're looking at income. Corporation tax is only on the profits of a company. Indirect tax is only tax on goods and services, not on income. Regressive tax is as income increases, the tax is on paid is lower than the income. Okay, so the more burden to poor. So burden to poor. Here, okay. Here burden to the rich. Indirect tax for goods and services. Corporation tax is for profits. Indirect tax for goods and services. And then progressive is the right answer, because as income increases, my tax is increasing. Okay, straightforward. I think so, right? Quite straightforward. Okay, move on to the next question. It says the government wants to reduce the consumption of cigarettes. Cigarettes is what? A demerit good. So this is a demerit good. It says which policy would most likely do this? Let's see. Increasing a subsidy on cigarettes. That is wrong, because when you increase subsidies, cost of production becomes cheaper. That means the price will become cheaper. So that's wrong. And governments will never give subsidies to people that are producing demerit goods. So that's wrong. Increasing income tax. That could be a possibility. If I increase income tax, the disposable income would reduce. Right? But however, let's see, I don't know. Might be a possibility, might be an answer, but let's see. Might be a possibility, but let's see. Increasing interest rate, that doesn't matter. That wouldn't matter. Okay, but let's still, because it won't have any impact. Increasing the indirect tax on cigarettes. I think this is the better answer. This is not that good of an answer. It could be, because disposable income decreases, and hence why consumption decreases, but people who are addicted to cigarettes will still buy it no matter what. Okay, increasing the indirect tax on cigarettes, that will be the best answer, because it will become more expensive, and if you don't have the money to buy it, of course the consumption will reduce. You see, in the other options, if you have the money, people will buy it. Okay, move on to the next question. Which group should not be included in the measurement of unemployment? Let's see. So unemployment, this is people in the labor force. Okay. Redundant, unskilled workers seeking alternative work. Nah, not included. This is included. So this is wrong. The seasonal agricultural workers, again, this is wrong. This is still part of unemployment. All these are employment. Which type of unemployment is this? Is this cyclic unemployment? Because they're looking for another work, or it's unskilled workers, sorry. Okay, it doesn't matter though, but yeah, out of seasons, this is seasonal unemployment. Students over 18 years continuing with full-time education. Yeah, this, we don't classify them as unemployment. They're students, and they are not part of the labor force. What is the labor force? Labor force is the people working who are people who are employed and also unemployed, except people who are working, like women working in households. Like there are many women who don't prefer to work, but they work in the households. That is, and we don't count them in unemployment. Then there are full-time students, we don't count them in unemployment. There's retired people, we don't count them in employment. Individuals, we don't, some individuals, retired individuals, we don't count them. And then also prisoners. There are people like prisoners, they are not counted in unemployment. They don't have a job, but they are prisoners, so we don't count them. Okay, we move on to number 21. Looks like it's on rate of unemployment. Okay, it says the table shows the rate of unemployment and real GDP growth for an economy in 2014 and 2018. It says which combination of policy measures would be most effective in returning the economy to 2014 level economy. Okay, so what do they want to do here? We want to make a rate of unemployment less. We want to make GDP less, or higher in this case. What would be the best answer to this? What would be the best answer to this? Now, if there's a negative GDP, what does that mean? Negative GDP means there's a decline in output, meaning the output has been reduced compared to 2014. Okay. And here I think you need to increase demand, because if you increase demand, GDP increases. So for GDP, to solve GDP, you increase demand. That's the best way to solve GDP. You just increase demand. So some policy that will increase demand will help affect the rate of GDP. It could be either more government expenditure, reduction in taxes, less interest rate, more money supply, which are all the policies by the government. That could be one way. Okay, that could be one way. So let's look at for something for that. And even if there's more demand, unemployment will rise. So we are looking at something like more government expenditure, less taxes, more less interest rate, more money supply. Less interest rates. This will help that. Okay, so that's how we do it. So let's say a decrease in direct tax and an increase in interest rate. Increase in interest rates, wrong. This would be correct, this would be wrong. So hence why wrong, because if there's an increase in interest rate, people will start saving more, so demand will fall, so that's wrong. A decrease in government expenditure, that's wrong. We want an increase in government expenditure. A decrease in direct tax, okay, that's correct. A decrease in interest rate, oh sorry, it said increase. Okay, that's wrong, this is right. It said increase in direct tax. We don't want to increase direct tax, that will lower demand. An increase in government expenditure, that is correct. A decrease in the rate of interest, that is correct. The answer is D. Okay, so here we're just looking at fiscal policy and monetary policy. Okay, so these are quite straightforward questions. Okay, 22, an economy is experiencing rising prices. That means maybe inflation, but let's see. Which government policy will help reduce consumer expenditure? We want to reduce consumer expenditure. How can we do this? Either maybe involving taxes. We could do something related to taxes. We could do something related to interest rates. We could do anything like that. Okay, but what is consumer expenditure? Consumer expenditure refers to how much a consumer spends. Okay, and it's also part of demand, aggregate demand, AD. Okay, let's see the first one. Introducing compulsory saving for income earners. Yeah, that could be one actually. That could be a good answer. But again, we look at best possible answers. Okay, that could be the answer though. It says investing more in building infrastructure. This will not matter, because if investment increases, there will be a positive multiplier effect, meaning there will be an increase in unemployment, which will increase consumer expenditure, because incomes will increase. So this would be incorrect. Issuing more banknotes, again, doesn't matter. Reducing indirect taxes. If taxes reduce, there will be more disposable income, which will lead to more consumer expenditure. So this is wrong. Best answer is A. Okay. Best answer is A. Okay, we move on. We move on. Some goods take a greater percentage of typical households' total spending than others. How is this accounted for in the construction of CPI? What's CPI? CPI, another topic that people mess up in. CPI is the measure of inflation. Okay, it measures the average change in prices over time of a particular good, or they say, I think, weighted basket of goods and services. I think that's the proper term people use. Okay, how do you calculate rate of inflation using CPI? We say new CPI minus the old CPI over old CPI times 100. That's how you do CPI. Okay, but goods which make up a higher proportion of the household spendings get a higher weightage. So if I spend a higher proportion of my spending, that will mean it has higher weightage. For example, water. No matter my income, I have to buy water, so it will have a high weightage on goods. Okay, but it's not relevant to the question. But how do you calculate CPI? Let me give you the steps of calculating a CPI. Okay, so let's write here steps for calculating CPI. Steps for calculating CPI. What's the first step of calculating CPI? The first step is you represent a good basket is collected. A representative basket is collected. Okay, base year is set as 100. The weightage is given to each good, and then the weighted average price is calculated. That's the thing, mainly what you need to know. Okay, that is what you need to know. So yeah, let me not write all that. Hopefully you understand that. I repeat that. I'll say a representative basket is collected, meaning you look at all the goods, get them all together. The base year is set as 100. Weightage is given to each of the good, and then the weighted average price is calculated. But in this question it says, how is this accounted to the construction of CPI? We look at by giving the weight of goods. We talked about it. Okay, by giving the weight of goods. By deducting the goods, no. By taking average price fluctuations, nah. By using price elasticity, nah. So the best answer would be by giving weight to the goods, and we know that in the definition of CPI. Okay. Move on. I think this one's about poverty. It says, in countries with absolute poverty, low incomes can start a process that keeps incomes low. What are the stages of process? Okay, let's see. Low income. Okay. Low incomes, low consumption. We'll follow the chain. We see whether it's right or wrong. Okay, they have low incomes. Got that. Low consumption. That's correct. Low prices. Will there be low prices if there is low consumption? It could be, but not necessarily. Not necessarily. So this would be wrong. Low incomes, correct. Low government spending, again, would be wrong. Actually, if there's low incomes, government will start spending more. Let's see. Low incomes, okay. Low investment, could be. High profits, nope. When there's low investment, there can't be high profits. If there's low incomes, people are not buying your stuff. So again, wrong. Low incomes, correct. Low saving, correct. Low investment, correct. Low productivity, correct. Low incomes, correct. That is the best one. There's low income, I start saving more because I don't have enough money. If people start saving more, investment will be low. Okay, remember, investments only increase when interest rates decreasing, meaning if I can borrow more, I will invest more. But if everyone's saving, not borrowing, then it will be low investment. If there's low investment, there'll be low productivity, because remember, investment deals with goods. If I invest, investment, what is the definition of investment? Investment is when you buy capital goods so that it can help your production of goods and services. But now if you don't invest, there'll be low productivity, hence low income. So that is the answer. Which factor in the world's low income countries limit their economic development? Okay, let's see. Now, which factor in the world's low income countries limit the economic development? Balance of payments surpluses. When balance of payment surpluses means what? Exports increase and imports decrease. So exports are greater than imports. Okay. Limit the economic development. So if we have more Exports, isn't that good? That's economic development. So this is, which factor is in this? So that's wrong. High saving ratios. If people start saving more, low income countries have low savings. So this is wrong. People who have low incomes, they save less, I think, right? Because you see, they don't have enough money to save that much. Okay, because people have to spend it on basic needs, right? They have to spend it on basic needs. Then large inflows of foreign investments. Foreign investments include stuff like foreign direct investments, like, and hot money flows. Okay, and if this increases, then it will result to economic development. But this is large inflow, so again this will be wrong. Rapid population growth. If there is rapid population growth, the growth in the population is greater than the growth in the GDP, as GDP per capita is falling. So this would be a factor, and hence why this would be the answer. I think so. This would be the best answer. Because when there is rapid growth, right, the growth in the population is greater than the growth in the GDP. Okay. But yeah, so that's the case right here. Okay, that is the case. But let's explain this again. Okay, let's explain this again. Unless yeah, I think actually it's quite straightforward. Yeah, should be quite straightforward. Yeah, so the answer is D, because of the growth in the population is greater than the growth in the GDP. Okay, so the GDP per capita is falling. Sorry. So the GDP per capita is falling, and that's good. Why can't C be the answer in 25th? Large inflows of foreign investment, because we said hot money flows, which is bad. Okay, large inflows of foreign investments will not help the economic development. Okay, so yeah, but again, you see, it could be the answer, but again, we look at the best answer. And in, you see, low income countries, we know they have high populations, and if there is a rapid population growth, the growth in this population, if it's greater than the growth in the GDP, so the GDP per capita will fall, which is good for the economy. This will limit the economic development. This, you see, the question is asking us to limit the economic development. Foreign investment is good for the economy. It will not limit it because of hot money. It will make the economy increase, right? Because it's saying which one will limit the economic development, right? High saving ratios, all that, so on and so forth. This will not limit the economic development because more investment is good for the economy. But rapid population growth is the GDP will become bad. Because you see, we all know that in low income countries the population is so high. Okay, population is so high, and GDP and all that, the equation is all messed up. Okay, yeah, so that's the reason why a country with such a small population can have such a high GDP. And remember, high GDP is always good, but because there is so much population growth, it's really bad for GDP. Okay, so hopefully you're understanding that. So the table shows the percentage employment in primary, secondary, and service tertiary, I think. Which country is likely to be the most developed? Okay, so most developed meaning there will be less primary sector, so it could be either A or B. Okay, usually less, and there's usually more tertiary, so more tertiary, so the answer should be A. This is straightforward, there's nothing to explain here. More tertiary meaning more services. If you notice in your country, if there are more people doing services rather than more doing primary sector. Primary sector is getting the raw material, secondary sector is assembling, tertiary sector is doing services. Okay, so straightforward. What causes the birth to fall in an economy? Fewer women work. If fewer women work, will it affect? It wouldn't affect. Focusing less on their careers, so the birth rate will increase. Okay, birth rate will increase because they're not doing their careers. The birth rate could increase. Okay, so the birth rate could increase, not a fall. Remember, the keyword here is which one result to a fall. So this one is wrong. Infant mortality rises. Yeah, that could be the right answer. What infant mortality means? As healthcare improves and living standards and income rise, there is no need to have more children, to alleviate poverty, is what it means. So, as children are given birth in many developing countries, there will be a financial support to the family. But because incomes, are already high, this isn't needed, is what it means by. Wait, sorry. Infant mortality rate, meaning there's more deaths. Okay, sorry, yeah, sorry. That's not the answer. That's not the answer. Sorry. That is not the answer. Because you see, if infant mortality rate increases, that means deaths increase. So that means, or what? If the rate rises, that will mean that results to death rates rising. Yeah, so that can't be the answer. Okay, that can't be the answer. Medical supplies and healthcare improve. Yeah, this is the answer. Because if healthcare improves, then there'll be lower birth rates. Because people use contraceptives, so on and so forth, and that's why there'll be a fall in birth rate. The optimum population increases. If there's an increase in population, the birth rate will most likely increase. So this is wrong. That's why usually in populations where the country is so populated that they have many children, they have high birth rate. How would we give weight to the goods in 23rd? Where is 23rd? That's just the definition of CPI. I explained all of this. Okay. Now, there's in this syllabus, I don't think you need to know how to do that. So don't worry about how to give the weight to the goods in that. But if a question like that comes, we'll have a look at it. But for now, I've never seen a question like that. They could be wrong, but I haven't seen one in long. Okay, a country wishes to increase a current account surplus. Current account surplus is more exports. So we want to just simply increase exports. How do we increase exports? Okay, we want to increase exports. Abolish import quota. If we abolish this, that means imports will rise, which will make a deficit. Okay, import quota is simply the number of goods allowed to import. So this would be nothing related to exports. Increase import tariffs. Okay, if I increase import tariffs, tax on imports, so if the tax on imported products will increase, then imports will decrease, exports will increase. This is the right answer. Nothing more to explain. Okay, so current account surplus, remember the things you need to know here is the exports are up. Okay, exports are higher. So we need to increase exports somehow. How do we increase exports? Using this. Because if I increase the import tariffs, this would mean imports will become expensive, meaning less imports, more exports. Move on to the next question. A table shows a country's exports and imports. What was the country's balance of trade in goods and services? So how do you calculate the BOP? How do you calculate? A good question. So how do you calculate a balance of trade in goods? Let me give you so balance of trade in goods. What is the equation to this? The equation is exports of goods minus imports of goods. Okay, so exports minus imports. This is all for goods. Then we do for services. Okay, so you do the balance of thing for services. So you do BAL of trade in services. So that again is exports minus imports. And then you just minus the 2. So in this case, it would be 10. It would be 10 here because I'm doing 200 minus 190. Here I'm doing 35 minus 38, which is 3. Isn't it? Negative 3. Negative 3 million. Okay. But the negative, so negative 3 million. So this is negative 3 million. So 10 plus minus 3 is 7, positive 7. So the answer is surplus of 7 million. So just remember the formula. You just do the balance of trading goods. First you do exports minus imports, you find. Then you do for services, you find it minus 3, then 10 plus minus 3. If it is not minus 3, you add them together. Okay, last question. It says a diagram shows the value of countries' exports and imports of goods over 5 years. Okay. and we're supposed to calculate it. So we have the exports and imports. What we could do is first calculate the BOP, the balance of trades in goods. Here it would be 20 minus, so it will be 5 here. Here it would be 21 minus maybe 18, so it would be 3 million here. Here it would be 25 million minus 24, so it will be 1 million. Here it will be 30 minus 25, which will be 5 million. Here it will be maybe 27 or 26 million minus 18 million. Or what? Minus 19 million. So maybe we say 20, we can say 27 minus 19 is what, 8 million. And it's telling us between which 2 years did the country have an increase in the value of imports and an improve in the balance of trade. So we need to look at which two factors. We need to look at increase in imports. So we need to look at which one increases imports. Okay, here we have to look imports. Here imports are increasing. Here imports are increasing. Here imports are increasing. These 2 years they're decreasing. So this is for sure wrong. Then which one is improving the BOP? 5 million to 3 million is negative, so this is wrong. So this answer is wrong. 3 million to 1 million is decreasing by 2, so this is also wrong. 1 million to 5 million is correct, so the answer is 3. Did you guys understand that? I first calculated the balance of trade in goods by doing exports minus imports, and it's moving from 1 million to 5 million, which is an increase in the balance of trade in goods, which is positive, so that's good. And then there's also an increase in imports, which is also good, so the answer is 3 and 4. For the other years it doesn't make sense. For 1 and 2 you can see the balance of trade in goods are decreasing from 5 million to 3 million. Okay, so that is quite straightforward. So we're done with the first paper. We're going to move on. As I told you, I'll be doing these questions throughout the day. There is no stopping. There is no stopping. We'll do as many questions as I can. I want to do the May-June variant 1-2. I think that paper was also quite interesting. It was a good paper. I think so. I remember doing it a long time ago, but I think it was good. So we'll do the May-June 2020 paper 1 variant 1-2. So yeah, we're done with this one. Hopefully there's no questions for this paper. So we're going to now May-June variant 1-2. Next paper we do. We're drinking some water now. Yeah, we took a lot of time for the first paper. We took like almost 1 hour for the first paper. It's because I was explaining a lot. I think I explained a lot on fixed costs and all that. But hopefully you guys are understanding now. You know, the main thing is as long as you understand, it's fine. Even if we took 1 hour for doing one paper, as long as you got the point. Yeah. As long as you got the point, does not matter. Okay. It does not matter as long as you got the point. So let's see. Okay, so we'll do this question in just a minute. So yeah, as I said, I'll be doing random papers. And yeah. Okay. Hopefully there was no questions on the previous paper. If we just quickly go over the previous paper, I think some of the harder questions was the fixed cost question. Maybe even this question, some people were a bit confused. Remember, supply is affected, demand is affected. Yeah, if you missed this, again, you can just rewind back and I'll also be uploading this. Yeah, this one people were confused because people didn't know how to find the fixed cost value. But again, remember I said the first one is the fixed cost value, okay? Because at this point the output is 0, okay? Yeah, output is 0. Okay, let's go to this question now. Okay, we shall do this paper now. Can I solve 2011 May-June 1-2? Yeah, we will do. But that's quite old. And it is very old. I don't know if you should do that old papers. Are you done with all these recent papers? I think you should start with recent papers. Because some of these old papers, they're out of syllabus. So there's no point here. But sure, we can do We can do that, but let's do this question. Let's do this paper since I've opened it, and then we'll see what to do after that. Yeah. Okay. So it says in 2016, 20 billion barrels of oil and 1.6 billion barrels of natural gas were discovered in Texas. Okay. So how much natural gas was found? Oil was found. Okay. Which factor of production has increased in the US due to this discovery? Oil is what? Oil is land. Natural gas is land. It's classified part of land because it's a natural resource. So land is affected. Capital is anything related to machinery. Nothing related to machinery was increased. Enterprise, it depends on any business starting, so no. Labor, there's nothing related to labor, so no. So the answer to this one is land. Right, so land, anything related to natural resources. Labor, human effort. Capital, man-made resources. Enterprise, a business or an entrepreneur starting something, starting an enterprise. We have a PPC question now. Diagram shows the production possibility curve, PPC. Which of these points show the largest possible output of product Y? So this is product Y. We want the most product Y. At which point is the most? It will be B, right? Straightforward questions. There's nothing to explain to this. It's B. It can't be A, it can't be D. This is inefficient, unattainable. If you've watched my video on the graphs, I think you'll understand this. So at this point, it is unattainable. We don't have enough resources to make it. At this point, it is inefficient. At this point, we are producing more product X. We need to produce more product Y. So hence, answer is B. Okay, so that is the answer. I remember this question. This question is tricky. The next question here. A student decides to take up a 2-year apprenticeship for which she will earn $10,000 per year. After that, she expects to earn $25,000 per year. Okay, she learned $10,000 per year, but then after that she expects to earn $25,000 per year. She could take the unskilled job, which pays $16,000 per year, instead of the apprenticeship. Okay, we involve a lot of calculations here. First of all, what is opportunity cost? Is how much we've lost. Okay, so let's do the calculations. So a student decides to take up this 2-year stuff. She will earn $10,000 first year, and then she will earn $25,000. So a total of $35,000 in 2 years. Then she's thinking of an unskilled year. Okay, this unskilled, right? Okay, this unskilled year, one second. It says per year opportunity cost. Okay, we're looking, I think, at per year opportunity cost. Okay, what is the per year opportunity cost? What is the per year opportunity cost? Let's look at the opportunity cost per year. Okay, so for the first year, if I pick 10,000 instead of $16,000, I'm losing how much? I'm losing $6,000. I'm losing $6,000 because of taking my whatever, this apprenticeship. And the second year, I'll just do 6,000 times 2, giving me 12,000. So the answer is 12,000. Many people, you know what they did? They did opportunity cost of the entire 2 years. So what they did is they added 10,000 with 25,000. What I was doing previously, but that wouldn't make sense. Okay, this would be the better one. Okay, this would be the better one because it says she expects. She's not getting it. She's expecting. So she might not even get $25,000. She's only expecting it. So we don't, in economics, we don't assume, right? So that is 12,000. Okay. Microeconomics analyzes choices in various situations. Which area of economic studies does not include? So we're looking at microeconomics. Microeconomics, remember, is producers and Consumers. So we're looking at producers, we're looking at consumers. So which area of economic study does not include? Costs and revenues of a firm. Isn't this part of producers? So that is correct. So anything related to a macroeconomic objective would be wrong. So cost and revenues of a firm, this would be wrong. Individual and consumer behavior, again, this is part of consumers, so this is wrong. This is part of consumers and producers. Policies for economic growth, this is correct, because economic growth is done by the government, not by anyone else. It's done by the government. Yeah. So because it's done by the government, then that will be the answer. Yeah. Okay, what causes market failure? Market failure is when the resource allocation fails. So let's see. Many firms is good, because many firms will mean there will be more competition. So that's not market failure. That's actually good for us. Monopoly, that is market failure. Monopoly is market failure. Monopoly is simply when a company dominates the market. When a company dominates the market, monopoly occurs, which is a market failure, because these monopoly people can exploit the consumers, and this will mean that that causes a market failure. Okay, which causes market failure. Okay, profit maximization, that doesn't matter. That's not a factor of market failure, because you see, profit maximization is actually, it's done by all the private sector people. Their main objective is to get profits. Okay, but market failure is when this allocation is where the problem is, like monopoly. Specialization, again, that one doesn't matter, because that one's actually good for the economy, because products will have better quality and so on and so forth. So that again doesn't cause market failure. Okay, so we have diagrams. The diagram shows the supply curve of an individual grower of tomatoes. So someone is growing tomatoes, and for the total market supply of tomatoes, so we have individual and we have total market. So someone individually is producing some tomatoes, someone in the entire market is producing tomatoes. It says, what explains the similarity between the two curves? See, they have the same similarity. Why do they have the same similarity? Now, the reason to this is because we know that if the producer is asked to supply more in the market, he will need an incentive such as a higher price. Okay, so for example, at $0.5 in this graph, the individual grower can produce up to 1,000 kgs, okay, in profit. And above 1000 kg, the price will need to rise to cover up the costs. Okay, so he follows the market, right? He follows the market because he needs to make profit. So at 0.5, he's making 1000. If it's more than that, then he will need to increase the costs. Same to 1.5, same to 3, because he wants to make profit. So it says, as costs rise, growers need to get a higher price to increase output. That is correct, because as costs increase, they will need more money, because of the reason to why there will be more output. Okay, so the answer is that. Okay, number 7, the price of bread rose by 5% and the quantity demanded fell by 4%. What is the price elasticity? How do you calculate price elasticity of demand? So that is change in quantity demanded over change in price. So change in quantity demanded is 4%, and the price of bread has rise by 3%, by 5. Okay, so therefore the answer is, again, look, it fell by 4%, so it's negative, right? Because it said it fell by 4%, it's negative 4. It rose by 5%, it's positive 5. So the answer will be negative 0.8. Okay, straightforward. Again, these types of questions, just use the formula. There's nothing hard in that. Okay, it says Saudi Arabia specializing in oil extraction and refining. So they are specializing in this. This is capital intensive. What does capital intensive mean? It means that In the production, we are using capital goods. We're producing more capital goods in the in the industry. Okay, with highly skilled labor. So what might be a disadvantage of this specializing? What's the disadvantage of this? Why is this bad if we have more capital intensive? First question. First of all, what is specialization? This is a method of production where it entirely focuses on the production of limited scope of goods to gain a greater degree of efficiency. Okay, which simply means I focus on a particular good, which would mean I would be more efficient in that, hence why I specialize in that, because maybe I have the raw materials, maybe I have the goods required for it, maybe I have the capital needed for it, hence why that's all good. Okay, so that's it. Oil companies have increased training costs as each worker needs many different skills. Oil companies have increased training costs as each worker needs many different skills. No, this is wrong, because we don't need different skills. The good thing about specialization is we need only one skill, because we need the skill to produce that certain product, and that's all you need, right? So oil companies may find it difficult to achieve economies of scale. That could be the answer. Could be the answer. We'll just keep it on tick right now. Could be the answer. Actually, no, because this refers to a decrease in per unit. So the average cost as output increases. No, because capital is there, so this is again wrong. No. Resource allocation is not efficient because a narrow range of goods is being produced. Resource allocation doesn't matter, right? Because if I'm specializing on a certain product, then I can keep producing it again and again. Workers may face a restricted range of job opportunities. That's correct. The bad thing about specialization is that you're fixed to only one type of skill. You're fixed to only one type of job, if that is in your economy, which is bad because you don't have enough choice to do many other stuff. So yeah, that's bad. So therefore that is bad. Move on to number 9. Number 9 says, what would most likely cause a person to increase their savings? Okay, so savings, here I think we talk about interest rate. Okay, so we look at factors relating to interest rates. And yeah, so will there be a rise in interest rates or fall in interest rates? If you want to increase savings, we increase the interest rates. I mentioned what interest rates were. I explained what interest rates are. Interest rates are simply how much you have to pay back to the bank. So if I pay less to the bank, okay, and savings is if I save more, they will pay me more. So that means if there's a rise in interest rates, people will start saving more. A decision to plan for retirement. Okay, if they are planning for retirement, that could increase the savings. And again, it says most likely, so we'll just put a tick here. A fall in income. If there's a fall in income, people will not save more. So this is wrong, because if there is a fall in income, people have to spend on their needs. So that's wrong. People will have to spend on the needs, because this would mean less income is left behind for consumption. So they need the money for the consumption. Fall in interest rate, that is the opposite of what we needed. We needed an increase in interest. If there's a fall in interest rates, meaning we need less than what's required, so that's wrong. A reduction in tax-free saving schemes. Again, this would not be affecting savings, so the answer is A. Yeah, so that's the best answer. Okay. The graph shows women's wages as a percentage of men's wages in year 1 and year 2. Okay, so we have a graph here, and it seems there's a deep down incline for both the years, and then they're rising. Okay, so which statement is shown by the graph to be true? Okay, let's see. The first answer says younger women earn more than elder women. Wait. Have they talked about anything related to genders? No. Shows women's wages as a percentage of men's wages in year 1 and year 2. You see here, we can't tell which one's women, which one's men. They're not shown, or what? Are they shown? No, they're not shown. So it's not shown, so we cannot make a decision if they're not shown, right? Always these types of questions, you cannot make a decision if they don't show you the information. So that's wrong. Women's wages remain about the same between the age 40 to 50. So 40 to 50. 40 to 50. Do they remain the same? Are they the same between 40 to 50? I mean, they vary a bit, and they don't necessarily remain the same, because there's a change in value as time goes. What it means when there's the same, it's when there's two straight lines or something like that, or there's at least a certain pattern. But you see, at age 45 there's a rise here, there's no rise here, so this would be wrong. We can't make a conclusion out of that, so that would be wrong. In year 2, all women were earning more than men. So let's see, in year 2 all women were earning more than men. Why are they all women? We don't know if all women were earning more than men. You see, because this one's the average. Okay, this one's the average. We don't know if all would earn more than men. Okay, so again, this one we cannot make a good decision. So hence, let's see this one. In year 2, women were earning a higher percentage of men's wages than in year 1. That's a more better conclusion, because it says in year 2 women were earning a higher percentage of men's wages than in year 1. Yeah, that makes sense, because in year 2 throughout the graph it is above year 1. Have you noticed that? In year 2 it is above year 1 throughout. So that means the females have earned a higher percentage of the men's wages. So that should be the answer. Okay, straightforward I think, but yeah. Number 11, it says people's income decrease. If income decreases, what will happen to leisure activities? It will decrease. Food will... What will happen to food? Food will increase, would it? Actually, food remains the same, isn't it? Depending on your income, you're always going to need it. But actually, it might... Yeah, but food increases, right? Because you see, the difference you need to know here is that people start prioritizing the food, because this is a need, it's a necessity, while leisure is a want. Okay, leisure activities is the luxury, so this one will for sure decrease. Food will increase, because people will start focusing more on, getting food, more proportion spent on food, because we need the food, right? You can't live without the food. Okay, so let's add another. Total cost, fixed cost, variable cost. These are good questions, because these questions is where people mess up. It says the table shows total fixed and total variable cost at different levels of output for a firm. Okay, so we have these, they are the different costs. What happens as output rises? So let's see. Fixed costs, of course, they're the same throughout. What's happening to the variable cost? They're increasing. So here it's all increasing plus 500. It's all increasing plus 500. It's increasing. How do you calculate average fixed cost? Does it fall? No, it will not fall, because to calculate average fixed cost, we will do 1000 divided by 100. Let's make a table here. So for average fixed cost, for the first year it will be 1000 divided by 100, which is 10. For the second year it will be what, 5? Yeah, it will be 5. It will be 5. Then 1000 divided by 300 is what, 3.33. This is all the, so here it will be 3.33, and then here it will be 1000 divided by 400, it is 2.5. Okay, so this is the average fixed cost. To calculate average fixed cost, you do total fixed costs divide by the output. Okay, this is what you need to remember, this for AVG, fixed cost. And hence why the average fixed cost rises? No, it's not rising, it's what's happening here. It's falling. So that's the answer here. That is the answer. Because you can see it's moving, it's going down. Hence why it is falling. In question 11, why will food increase as if income decreases, people don't have enough money spending to food? Okay, now you see here, the question here, it said, what is the proportion of the income? If I'm earning $10, how much of the proportion am I spending it to food? Okay, maybe $8. The proportion I'm spending from my income will of course be higher, isn't it? Because food is a necessity, I will need food. So of how much money I'm earning, I will have to spend on food. That's why it will increase. It's not saying how much it will increase from before. Of course it will decrease, but it's saying how much proportion is spent on the new income. You get it? Because if we are having $10, okay, now the proportion I have to spend on food increases because it's a necessity. I need food. Okay, that's the reason why it was C, because food will increase and leisure activities will decrease because we don't have the money for that. Okay, another question here. It says the following information refers to a firm producing shoes. At which level of output does the firm maximize profit? How do you calculate maximize profit? How do you calculate profit? Profit is total revenue minus total costs, right? Total revenue minus total cost. So just know that definition. Profit is equals to the total costs, sorry, total revenue minus total costs. Total revenue minus total cost. So total revenue minus total cost. So total revenue is 1300 minus total cost is 1000. So here it will be 300. Here it will be a negative. So this output is, they've given, just they've given it to confuse you. Here it will be, of course, negative something, negative 400. Here it will be what? No, sorry. Here it will not be negative, it will be 400. Here it will be 300. Here it will be 200. So the highest is 400. So it is at point B is when it's the highest. Again, quite straightforward. Just need to know the formula. I think here they're just testing you whether you know this formula right here. Total revenue minus total costs. Okay, that's when just general knowledge, you could guess that. How much I'm earning versus how much I'm spending is how much is my profit. Remember this formula is used a lot in these types of questions. I might make a video just on fixed costs and average costs because many people struggle with that topic. Many people struggle with that topic. Hence why maybe I might make a video on that. But hopefully this is helping at least. Okay, which statement proves that there has been an increase in productivity for a factory making tractors? Okay. How can we say there is an increase in productivity for someone who is making tractors? Now, a reason why productivity can increase is there are several factors on how productivity could increase. Okay. So productivity is how efficient someone is, yeah. Okay, and to calculate productivity or labor productivity, we just do the total output. We do the total output versus the number of workers. Okay, so that there will find our productivity. Okay, so it says 10% more workers results in 10% increase in tractors produced each week. So in this case, this is constant returns to scale and productivity. So when there is an increase in returns to scale, it's the same. So if 10% more workers result into 10% more tractors produced, so this will not affect productivity because how many workers are increasing, that's how much tractors are increasing. So this doesn't matter. Okay, the productivity is the same, it remains constant. So hence why this is the wrong answer. Output per worker increases from 3 tractors to 4 tractors. Yeah, that's correct, because if now each worker would produce 1 more tractor every time, that will increase the productivity. Okay, so hence why if the output increases, because for example we have 5 workers, okay, at the first time they're producing 5 tractors. Okay, let's say they're producing 1 tractor. Okay, each of these workers are producing 1, yeah, so that's what, 5 tractors. But now let's say each of this producing 2 tractors, that will mean 10 tractors. Okay, so that will mean that the efficiency has been increased, right? And to find the productivity, we do the total output, so 10 divided by the workers, which is 2 here, and here it will be 5 divided by 1, it will be 1. So you can see the productivity has increased from 1 to 2. Okay, that's just an example I would give. Production increases as more workers are hired. As more workers are hired, it wouldn't matter because they can still be not as productive as before, so that could be wrong. Starting a night shift leads to an increase in production of 10 tractors a day. Now we don't have enough information to how much they were producing previously, so again this is wrong. Okay, so that's a quite straightforward question. Yeah, nothing else to really know. Let's go to number 15. It says, when do economies of scale take place? Okay, remember, economies of scale, we look at cost of we look at the total output, and we look at the costs when we are producing something. So when economic costs are there, average costs decrease. Okay, because there are many other ways we can do economies of scale, like there's technical, then there's financial, bulk buying, so on and so forth. So let's see now. In economies of scale, we have short run, we have long run. Yeah. In short run, it means a time period where at least one input is fixed while the others are variable. Long run simply means the time period where all inputs are variable. Okay, and remember, economies of scale takes place in the long run. It's always in the long run. Okay, economies of scale can never be taken place in the short run. It happens over time. Like, I can't just start a business and have economies of scale. It's always in the long run. So this makes that wrong. If variable factors become fixed, okay, if variable factors become fixed, what variable factors mean? That again is when it's the short run. So this happens in the short run when variable factors become fixed. So this is again wrong. When all factors of production are fixed, that is in the long run. Okay, when all factors of production are fixed. So what this means is that, for example, I have land, labor, capital, all whatever, and if they all are fixed, if they're the same price, economies of place cannot take place because it's all the same, right? If variable factors become fixed, if they're the same, if I'm paying rent every time the same, again economies of scale doesn't take place. We have to look at an answer which will reduce the average costs. Okay, and when all factors of production become variable, okay, this could mean that they could decrease, okay, which makes my average cost decrease. This would be the best answer. If they're fixed, then there won't be any economies of scale, but if they vary, that will affect my cost. Okay, yeah. So what is not included in public expenditure? Public expenditure is, again, we have public expenditure is just simply the goods spent on by the government, or expenditure made by the government, for example street lights, so on and so forth. We have current expenditure, we have capital expenditure. I think we have 3 types of expenditures. So current expenditure is when the final consumption is there, like for example property income paid, then subsidies, other types of current transfers like pensions and stuff like that. That's called current expenditure. Then we have capital expenditure. Okay, capital expenditure is when you spend money on acquiring fixed assets like equipment, buildings, stuff like that. But here I think, okay, maybe that's a bit too in-depth, but here what you just simply need to know, that public expenditure is when it's made by the government or something like that. Okay, so let's see. Okay, the first one, it says capital spending by the firms. Capital spending by firms. So what this means is that if the firm's expenditure should come under an investment in aggregate demand, right? So capital is what? Capital is an investment. Okay, capital is an investment, and this is done by the firm. So this is not public expenditure. It's not done for the public, isn't it? This is all private expenditure. And the question is asking what is not included. So this would be the answer. Interest payments on government. Again, look, if you've noticed in each of the answers, government is mentioned. Government. You can see they all are done by public expenditures. Okay, they're done for the public. This one is a private investment. This is an investment. It's not a expenditure, because when I'm spending on capital, that's investment, and that will moreover mean I'll get more profit maybe, and so on and so forth. So that's that. Okay, when is the budget described as balanced? So when is the budget described as balanced? Now we know the BOP, it's only balanced when exports and it's when budget, not BOP. So budget is when the government spending and government revenue is equal. Okay, so we have budget surplus, we have a budget deficit. Budget surplus is when the government revenue exceeds spending, And then deficit is when government spending exceeds government revenue. So budget, when it's balanced, is when the government spending and government are the same. Direct tax, indirect tax is nothing like that. It doesn't matter if taxes and indirect taxes are the same. And this is again BOP. And then demand and supply of money are equal again. There's nothing like that. That's equilibrium, isn't it? So yeah, so when a budget is balanced, that simply means that the government spending and the government revenue are equal. Okay, we move on. The government is increased revenue by increasing taxes on firms. So this is tax on firms, right? It's not inheritance tax. It's not. Is it profit tax? It could be profit tax. Yeah, actually, yeah, profit tax looks like the best answer. Sales tax, no. Increasing tax on firms. Sales tax, no. Sales tax, this is an indirect tax. Okay, this is an indirect. This is an indirect tax. Value added to tax, again, this will not matter. Okay, value added to tax. This is also an indirect tax, and this is on a good and services at each stage of production. So we have there's also usually tax on stages of production. Like, I don't think you need to know that, but then we have taxes that are usually on stages of production which you need. But yeah, again, this is indirect. It's an indirect tax. This is a direct tax, but then it does not involve firms, so that's wrong. So profit tax would be the best answer for this. Alright, why are governments responsible for a defense of a country? See, this is a public good, right? It is impossible to charge a price for defense. The definition of a public good is so that we can't charge a value on it. So this is why it's correct. Because a public good, you can't give a certain value of it, right? You can't give a value on it. And that's the reason why the government has to give it. That's the reason why government have to intervene and start giving public goods. Okay, public goods would involve like street lights. For example, if you can't measure how much someone uses street lights. Like, everyone will use the road, right? But you can't measure how much someone is using a particular good, and that's when the government has to come in and provide these public goods. Okay, and this is an example of a public good or a public service, whereby they don't care about the profits, but instead they care about the welfare of someone. So that's why. That's the answer. So it is impossible to charge a price for defense, and that's the reason why the government has to give defense. It prevents individual citizens from having access to weapons. Again, this is wrong. Doesn't matter. It's like, so like, it's not relevant to defense, isn't it? Only governments can manufacture weapons. Not really. Providing defense is very expensive. Again, not really. The main reason is why, because we can't measure the value of defense. Okay, number 20, it says information about job vacancies on a government website has led to a decrease in the short-term unemployment. So this is short-term unemployment. What type of unemployment is this? Let's just describe each of them, and then we see which one is it. What is cyclic unemployment? Cyclic unemployment is when there is a fall in unemployment due to demand. Okay, so there is a fall in unemployment due to fall in demand. Due to fall in demand. So is anything related to demand here? No, nothing about demand. Now, friction unemployment. What is frictional unemployment? This is when the workers leave a job and they're finding another job. Okay, so this is time taken to finding another job. So time taken to find a job. Okay, what is structural unemployment? Structural unemployment is long term. Okay, and this is caused due to a mismatch in skills. So there's lack of skills, and when you don't have a particular skills. For example, like when an economy transfers from an agricultural economy, which is primary sector, to something that's secondary sector, the demand will fall because they don't have enough enough skills. So here we would just simple answer, change in structure of economy, of allocating resources, for example. Or you could just say a fall in skills. Then there's technological unemployment. So this simply means the workers replaced by machines. So which one would be the best one? Information about job vacancies on government website has led to a decrease in short-term unemployment. This simply means people are searching for jobs. They're searching for jobs. That means this is the time taken to find a job, and hence why the answer is B. Okay, so that is the reason why the answer is B. So yeah, you're correct. Okay, the table shows figures of real GDP of a country, and it says a quarter is 3 months. Okay, so this quarter is every 3 months. This is 3 months. This is 3 months. So every 3 months, 3 months, 3 months. So 12 months. So this is the whole year. During which quarters was the country experiencing a recession? What is a recession? A recession is simply when there is a decline in aggregate demand, okay, for a continuous period of 6 months, okay, or 2 successive quarters is what it means. So let's see, for quarters 1 and 2, there's an increase in GDP. Okay, so quarters 1 and 2, there's an increase in GDP because it's going from 100 billion to 101 billion. So there's an increase in GDP. Quarters 2 to 3, there's a decrease. Okay, there is a decrease in GDP. Okay, there is a decrease in real GDP has increased, but we cannot make quarter 2 the base to compare it to quarter 3. Okay, we cannot make this the base, right? So it's not always quarter 2 to quarter 3, isn't it? We have to look at the entire real GDP experiencing a recession. Okay, so what this means in quarter 2, right, the real GDP has increased, but we cannot make quarter 2 the base to compare with quarter 3. I hope you guys are getting that. We cannot say quarter 2 is the base year. We have to look for the entire year. Okay, hence why it is still rising. Okay, and we are looking for one that's falling. Okay, hence why it is still rising. It is still rising. There's still an increase in real GDP. So the real GDP still rises. Okay, real GDP still rises. In quarters 3 and 4, the real GDP is below 100 and continued falling during quarter 4. Okay, now you see this could be a bit confusing because you see 100 is the base year. So we have to do according to the base year. So if 100 to 101, that's an increase in GDP. So this one is for sure wrong. Why it can't be quarters 2 and 3 is because, yes, it is decreasing, but you can see it's only the definition of a recession is when it's more than 6 months. So here it's only it's just decreasing. So it's just decreasing by -1. So this can't be the possible answer. But the most it is look, at 99 it is less than 100, at 98 it is less than 100. So at this point it is experiencing a recession because at 99 and at 98 it is lower than 100. So it is both lower than 100. Because they are both lower than 100, that is meaning they will face a recession. In quarters 2 and quarters 3, in quarter 2 it's not facing a recession, but in quarter 3 it is. So here we can't say that there's a recession. But in quarters 3 and 4 there is a fall in recession because there's a fall in the base year. 99 is lower than the base year, 98 is lower than the base year, hence why a recession. Okay, hopefully that you guys understood. It's a bit confusing, but yeah, you don't have to look at only one particular quarter, but instead the entire. What would not be required in the construction of CPI? CPI, we said selection of base year. You need a base year. I explained this in the previous paper that we were doing. CPI is simply the measure of inflation, and it measures the average change in prices over time of a weighted basket of goods and services. What you need for CPI, you need it to be the weightage, you need the base year. Okay, and then of course you need the selection of representative range of items. So again, you will need this, but you will not need the average wage levels. Wages don't matter here. Of course, it doesn't matter because of this, but you don't need it for CPI. The weighting of each item in the index, again, this is correct. So the answer is C. So what do you require for this? For CPI, what do you require is the representative range. Then you need base year. and then you need the weightage. Just remember this, and for most of the questions it's just like that, straightforward. Okay. Yeah, so that is that. We move on. Okay, the table gives information about 3 economic indicators in 4 countries. 3 economic indicators in 4 countries. So we have country W, country X, country Y, country Z. Okay, and we are seeing what are the economic indicators in these 4 countries. So what may be concluded from this information? Okay, let's see. The rate of inflation, what's happening to the rate of inflation? And then what's happening to the rate of unemployment? So in these types of questions, you're just comparing everything. Let's see, countries with higher inflation have higher interest rates. Let's see if that's true. If they have a higher inflation, do they have a higher interest rate? You can see in this country, they have a high inflation. Okay, they have a high inflation. They also have a higher rate of interest rates. So this could be true. Actually, it could be true. It could be the answer. Because it makes sense. Because it says the countries with the highest inflation, which is country X and country Y, they also have the highest rate of interest. So this should be correct. Let's look at the other options though. It says countries with higher interest rates have lower unemployment. So this has higher interest rates, higher rate of unemployment. But that's not true, because even country W has a higher rate of unemployment and even the interest rate is low. So that's not necessarily true. So this could be wrong. Remember, in economics, you're looking at the best answer. This could be true, B could be true, but we're looking at the best answer. The best answer seems to be A. But let's see. The country with the lowest inflation, so we're looking at the lowest inflation now. Who has the lowest inflation? The lowest inflation is country W and country Z. So we usually take like 2 countries to compare. Had the highest unemployment. That's not necessarily true, because country Y has the highest rate of unemployment even though the rate of inflation is high. So again, this is wrong. The rate with the lowest unemployment had the lowest inflation. So lowest unemployment, lowest inflation, that is again wrong, because country W had the lowest rate of inflation. So that's the reason why. Okay. So I'm hoping you guys are understanding that. So due to war, some people are living in absolute poverty. Now we have 2 types of poverty: absolute poverty, relative poverty. Absolute poverty. What's the difference between absolute poverty and relative poverty? Absolute poverty is when there's severe deprivation of basic human needs. Like you don't have enough money for food, you don't have enough money for drinking, for water, for sanitation, for facilities, health, etc. Okay, and this is according to international standards. It's coming from the name, it's absolute. Not enough money for even basic, not enough money for even basic goods. Okay, so this is when you don't even have enough money for the basic goods. Then relative poverty is when you are classified to be poor compared to the other economy, compared to the rest of the economy. Okay, like you can afford needs, but you're still under poverty because of the other people in the economy. Okay, that is relative poverty. So relative poverty is comparative poverty. Okay, so a level of household income that is considerably lower than the median level of the income of a country. Okay, so that's the reason. So let's look at this. Let's look for an answer where it shows absolute poverty. Dependence on aid for medical treatment. No, this is wrong. This is not absolute poverty. Right? People in relative poverty can also actually not afford medical treatment. Okay. Lack of transport to escape abroad. Again, this could be done with relative poverty. Living in tents in temporary camps. Again, this is wrong. This is not showing anything related to absolute poverty. These things can all be also in relative poverty. It's not a must for everyone to afford this. But receiving inefficient food for basic nutrition is in fact absolute poverty. When you don't even have enough money for the food for basic nutrition, that is when there is absolute poverty. Okay, that is when there is absolute poverty. Okay, move on to 25. It says, which country would be classified as the most developed based on the data in the table? Okay, so we're looking at the most developed. How do you calculate the most developed? Here we look at calculate GDP. Okay, so you calculate GDP. So calculate GDP. I think in paper 2 for May June, this question came to calculate GDP. How do you calculate GDP? To calculate GDP, you simply have to do the total GDP over the population. So total GDP over the population. I don't know why I keep writing GPP, but GDP. Okay, so total GDP over population. So here the gross domestic product per year is 600. So 600 divided by 3 is what? 200. Right? Okay, yeah. So it's 200 here. Here it's 700 divided by 2, which is 350. So 350. Here it is 12,000 divided by 40 million, which is 300. Here it is 15,000 divided by 100 million, which is 150. Of course, it's in million though. This is all in million, by the way. Million, 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 million. Most developed is the highest one, which seems to be 350 million. Okay, so that's quite straightforward. You just calculate GDP, and the one with the highest GDP is the country that's producing the most. And if we divide by population, so it's not necessarily that people say that if you have the higher population, of course you have higher GDP, of course you have higher output, but it doesn't mean you're the most developed. Countries with such a low output can still, with such a low population, such a low output can still have a higher GDP. It depends on the population, depends on the total GDP. Are we calculating nominal GDP or real GDP? Now, this is GDP per capita. Okay, GDP per capita. Okay, so here we just have to simply compare the GDPs. You know, there's nothing about nominal, real. You see, they've given us the gross domestic product per year and the population, so we're supposed to calculate the GDP, the real GDP. Okay, as simple as that. They've given us two values. We use our knowledge on what GDP is and we use it. Okay, that's as simple as that. So we move on to the next question. Okay, it says, which changes usually result when a country develops and is able to provide free healthcare and provide living conditions, good living conditions. Okay, so we're looking at a country that is able to provide free healthcare and provide good living conditions. So that means it's always good when the birth rates are, it's always good when the death rates are falling and the birth rates are rising. Falling. I think actually, yeah, it's always good when it's falling. When birth rates are falling, I think. If the birth rates fall, that means they have good healthcare, meaning there's contraceptives, there's this, there's that. Meaning it's good when it falls. That means A should be the good answer, because it meets the criteria of falls and falls. Labor productivity rises, yeah. That would also contribute to better development of a country. Move on. Which protectionist measures would be most suitable for a government to use to support the growth in exports of an industry? So I want to increase the exports. How will I increase exports? If I increase exports, okay, what does protectionist mean? This is when any attempt by a country to impose restrictions on the open trade. That is what it means. Okay, so embargo is a ban on trade with another country. Quota is the limit on the volume of imports, and subsidy is a financial grant given. So this would mean there will be more exports, hence subsidy would be the best answer. Tariffs will again reduce. So subsidy will reduce the cost of production, leading to more exports, making the level more competitive. Hence why C is the answer. There has been an appreciation of value of a country's currency against other currencies. What effect will this have on prices of imports? Okay, now your currency has risen. There's a rise in currency, okay, compared to the other. Okay, there is a rise in the currency. So appreciation increases. That means my imports will become cheaper. Okay, because how much I can afford locally, I can afford more internationally, because the value of my currency has increased, so the imports are cheaper. So price of imports of raw materials are cheaper. Price of exports will be more expensive. Okay, as simple as that. And when there's a depreciation, what happens? It's the opposite. Imports are expensive, exports are cheap. So the answer is B here. Quite straightforward. You just need to know what appreciation means. You can think of it, you can try understand it through the help of examples. Because if my currency value increases, meaning I can have more purchasing power internationally, not locally, but internationally, because locally everyone has the same currency, internationally yes, so hence why the thing is cheaper. What is the disadvantage of increased specialization by a country? Okay, what is the disadvantage of increase? One second. Okay. What is the disadvantage of increased specialization by a country? If I'm specializing more, quality increases, so on and so forth. So let's look at the best answer. It becomes more reliant on inputs to meet its needs. I think that could be correct. That could be correct. It relies more on imports and it gets money by exports. So this should be the answer. Because if I specialize on a certain product, people will rely on imports to get other products. So that's the disadvantage, and more imports is bad because it makes a current account deficit, which is bad. So I think there's nothing more to explain in that. Okay, let's go to this question. It says the table shows components of Japan's current account balance in trillion, which is yen, for 2011 and 2012. Okay, which balance improved between 2011 and 2012? We've done a similar question to this in the previous paper. How do you calculate this? How are you supposed to calculate this? Now, first of all, what is a current account? A current account shows inflows and outflows, which shows imports and exports of money in various forms, like exports and imports. Actually, exports and imports is an example of a current account. But in general, current account shows inflows and outflows. Okay, and this is represented through the help of balance of trade. Okay, we have balance of goods in trade, balance of services, so on and so forth. Okay, export and imports of services represented by the balance of services or trade. Inflows and outflows of money in the form of factor and rewards and current transfers. So these are all examples of current account. Okay, now how do you calculate balance of trade in goods? Okay, I'm going to just quickly give the definitions of everything. How do you calculate the balance of trade in goods? Exports minus imports. Okay, we talked about this. So balance of trade in goods. So here we have exports minus imports. Then we have balance of trade in services. Again, here we have exports minus imports. Remember, this exports minus imports. This exports of goods, imports of goods. This exports of services, imports of services. Then how do you calculate the balance of primary income? This is the inflows of income minus the outflows of income. Okay, and income includes interest, profit, dividends, so on and so forth. So the inflows of income minus outflows of income. And balance of secondary income is inflows of income minus outflows of income. Again, but in this the income includes overseas development, military aid, and stuff like that. So let's see. Here it says the balance of goods in trillion is negative 1.61 million, and then in 2012 it's become negative 5.23. So it's worsened. So it's not improving, it's worsening. It's going down again and again. So that's balance of goods is wrong. It's not improving. Okay, then balance of services, again it's not improving, it's not improving. Okay, balance of primary income, is it increasing or decreasing? It's decreasing. Again, it's wrong. But balance of secondary, it is increasing by such a small amount, but it is increasing. So that's the answer. I know you didn't know that how to calculate the balance of trade in goods because they've already given us the two values for the different years, but it's good to know for that. Yep, so that makes this paper done. Yeah, quite straightforward. Yeah, but that is that. Okay, now the next paper I want to do, which was the next paper I want to do is 2019. October, November. So I'm gonna do 2019 October, November. I'm just gonna be doing all the variant 2s. So October, November, where is it? October, November. Open link in new tab. Okay, this is the next question we're gonna do. I mean the next paper, which is 2019 October, November. Paper 1, variant 2. As I said, I'll be doing these papers throughout the day, so feel free to come and go. I'll be doing as many questions as I can. Okay? Again, if you want to stay and do all these questions together, you can. If you want to, you can. Let me drink some water now, so my voice is still there. Otherwise, by the end of the stream, my voice will be gone. So I need to keep drinking water. I need to keep drinking water. Yeah, but we'll keep going on. That's why I started streaming in the morning, at least at my time, so that I can stream for long, because usually I stream in the evening, so I'm not able to stream for that long. But this time, I just decided I'm gonna do several past papers, so that it'll help in your revision. Maybe right now it's a bit too early, but then you can always watch this video before the day of your exam. Yeah, so I think we can start with this paper now. Okay, 2019 variant 1-2. So let's see how many papers we can do. I still have the energy, so I'll try to do as many papers as I can. And then I think after, when I upload the video, I might put those, what do you call those things, chapters for each of the papers, so that maybe if you want to see a particular type of paper, then you can always do that. So yeah, that's that. Okay, let's go with this question. First question, it says, which statement about factors of production is correct? So usually I think the first questions, if you guys have noticed from the few papers that we have done, it's talking about factors of production, it's talking about scarcity, economic problem, then there's always a PPC curve at the first page. But yeah, so which statement about factors of production is correct? Okay, we have 4 factors of production: capital and labor. Okay, capital and labor, enterprise. Can you do paper 2 streams? Yeah, okay, see, right now I'm doing all these streams for the May-June series, but then once when I'm done with all this, I'll be having a look at paper 2 streams. So don't worry about that, because you see, May-June they've already done paper 2, haven't they? We have already done paper 2, and now MCQ is next, hence why I'm doing so many MCQ videos. Yeah, so that's why. That is why I'm doing these many questions. So let's see, which statement about factors of production is correct? Capital is the amount of money borrowed from the bank. That is wrong, isn't it? Is that capital? Isn't capital it's a machine that's used to output goods, right? It's the machine. Or what? No, actually, capital is the amount of money borrowed from a bank. Money. Actually, no. This could be the right answer. Which statement about factory production is correct? So this is wrong, right? So we're looking at which one is correct. Okay, yeah, so that's wrong. So labor is output made by an employee. Is labor the output made by an employee? Nope, that is not labor. Labor is what? Human effort, mental effort, but it's not the output made by an employee. That's not correct. Land includes commercially grown rice crops. Okay, land includes commercially grown rice crops. You see, the fact they've said commercially, that makes it wrong, because they have made those crops. They haven't found them on the surface of the earth, so that is wrong. Profit is the reward for enterprise. That is correct. That is the answer. That is the only one that is right. That's the only one that is correct from the list. Okay. It is the only one that is correct. We move on to the next one. It says the diagram shows two production possibility curves, and it seems like there is an outward shift here. It says which statement about the movement from point X to point Y is correct. So we're having it go from point X and then it's going to point Y. Okay, so it says which statement about the movement from point X to point Y is correct. So demand for consumers' goods has risen. So what are the factors that affect the PPC curve to shift like that? There could be either because of resources increasing. So it could be either because resources are increasing, could be something related to population. Something related to population could also be the reason why. Maybe if population increases, you see people will be more into employment, meaning the thing will rise, right? So that could also be one. So demand for consumer goods is rising. So that will not affect the PPC curve. Maybe that will affect the demand curve, but not this curve. The opportunity cost for producing consumer good has risen. Again, this will not be affected because opportunity cost is not related to this. Okay, so benefits of the next best alternative is what opportunity cost is. And consumer goods, also known as final goods. Okay, so that again will not mean there will be a shift. There will be only a shift when there is an increase in productivity or an increase in resources or something related to in that line of change. Something related to that will mean there's an increase in productivity. And you can see the next one, it says there has been an increase in productivity in consumer goods production. So that would be correct, because an increase in productivity in consumer goods production, so that would be correct, because if there's an increase in productivity, we know that will shift outwards. So it'll shift outwards. And because it's only an increase in productivity of consumer goods, it'll be only a shift like this. The output of capital goods will remain the same, and it'll just be a shift like that. So that the answer is C. Okay, Sam wrote a list of how he would prefer to spend his Saturday afternoon. Okay, so I think this is a question on opportunity cost. It says the first choice. Okay, yeah, so Sam has wrote a list of how he would prefer to spend his Saturday afternoon, and his first choice is to go to a cricket match. His second choice is to watch an annual town parade. His third choice is go to the cinema, and then finally his fourth choice is to visit relatives. It says, unfortunately, a thunderstorm has caused the cricket match and the town parade to be cancelled, and he then went to the cinema. So he went to the third choice. He went to go to the cinema. What is the opportunity cost of going to the cinema? So what was the opportunity cost? What did he lose? Okay, this was not possible now, so he didn't lose it. He lost to going to the relatives. Now he wouldn't be able to go to his relatives, right? Because of the fact of him going to the cinema. And hence why the opportunity cost will be him visiting relatives. Because he will not lose going to the cricket match because there is a thunderstorm. So no matter what, no one will be able to watch that cricket match. But then the visiting relatives was his fourth choice, and he's missing that. And remember, opportunity cost is what you have lost. Okay, hence why the answer is visiting relatives. Okay, we move on to the next question. Which pair of economic institutions can be found in a market economy? What is a market economy? What is a market economy? A market economy is dealing with consumers and producers. No government intervention. Okay, there is no government intervention. Okay, so which one can be found in the market economy? Local government. This is wrong. Okay, guys, give me 1 second. I set this up. 1 second. Okay, yeah. So again, there's no local government, so that is wrong, right? Monopolies and commercial banks. Yeah, that would be correct, because monopolies, right? Monopolies is in a market economy. Commercial banks is in a market economy. Answer is B. It can't be a central bank because we don't have any in the market economy. Nationalized industries and partnerships. Nationalized, you see, this nationalized industries is not in the market economy. Stock exchange, public corporations, not in the market economy. So anything related to something being private is only in the market economy. Something related to the consumers and producers will be the only ones that will be found in your market economy. Okay. So that's that. Okay. Number 5, which suggests that there's a market failure. Market failure is what? When they fail to allocate resources. So there's failure to allocate resources. Failure to allocate resources. That means there is a market failure. Okay. So which suggests that there's market failure. Higher producer profits. It doesn't matter if someone is producing, there's more profit. It doesn't matter. Because it doesn't matter. So if you tell me that this is a market failure, then you say profit is bad. No, that's wrong. It doesn't really matter. Higher retail prices. Higher retail prices again does not matter, because you see, retail prices, it's according to demand and supply. You can't decide that this is high retail prices. If you're exploiting the consumers, then that's a different case. But it doesn't really matter if you just increase the retail prices. Lack of competition. That is correct. Lack of competition. If there's lack of competition, it's almost like monopolies. If there's lack of competition, you can exploit your consumers. Okay, and market failure is when there's inefficient use of scarce resources. Okay, lack of competition meaning a firm may start to acting like a monopolist. Okay, they'll start to exploit the customers. They'll start to giving overpriced, stuff like that. Okay, and that's when it happens, and that's when there's market failure. Okay, so that is the case. What can cause the supply curve of a product to shift to the right? So we're shifting to the right. So supply. What are the factors affecting supply? Factors affecting supply. And this one, to increase supply. An increase in the demand for a product. Have you ever seen? This is an extension of supply. This is not a shift to the right. So this is wrong. This is an extension. See, we have a supply curve like this. This will be an extension. It will not be a shift. A shift is only when, okay, let's see if there's an example. Okay, like this question here, this answer here. An increase in the government subsidies will make cost of production cheaper, which would mean more supply, which means this is the right answer. Okay, and subsidies are simply a financial grant that is given by the government to help a firm keep their cost of productions low. Hence, the price will be low and the supply will be higher because cost of productions will be low, and also profits could be higher. So that's why the answer could be that. An increase in indirect taxes on product. This increase in indirect taxes will make cost of production more expensive, which will make the supply to fall. Whenever there's a fall in supply, it will shift to the left, not shift to the right. An increase in cost of production. When there's an increase in cost of production, again it will shift to the left, because the price of the product will then become expensive. Hence, there will be a shift to the left. So this again is wrong. So the answer is still B. Okay, number 7, an elasticity question. A railway company increases ticket prices by 10% for travel between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m., causing a reduction in demand by 2%. So there's a change in demand. So the prices are increasing by 10%, and there's a 2% change. Now, in elasticity, if it was a demand was changing more than 10%, then it will be elastic. But here it looks like it is inelastic. Okay, so it is inelastic. The definition of inelastic is when the demand does not change relative to the price. If the demand was 11%, then that means it is elastic. But because it's 2%, meaning it's inelastic, because the change is less than how much they change the price. It reduces the ticket prices by 5%, resulting to a 7% increase in demand. You can see demand is increasing. If demand is increasing more than this, that means it is elastic. So this is elastic, this is inelastic. The answer will be C, right? So nothing complicated here. It's just quite straightforward. Okay, you need to know the definitions of inelastic and elastic. Inelastic is when there's less change. Okay, meaning the change, you can see in this question, right? How much was the demand changing by 2%, and the price was changing by 10%. You can see it's still less than how much they changed the price. Therefore, it is inelastic. But if, again, as I said, if it was 12%, 20%, that means it is elastic. But here the demand changed very little, hence why it is still inelastic. What is the disadvantage of being a specialist skilled worker? What is a disadvantage of being a specialist skilled worker? So this is basically disadvantages of being of specialization. Career opportunities are abundant. Are career opportunities abundant? No, that's not true. You can always change. Earnings are related to the level of skill. Again, that is incorrect. It's not usually. This is one of the factors, but not correct. It's not a disadvantage, actually. It could be an advantage. If you have very good skill and there are very few people who are skilled like you could earn more. So that's not a disadvantage. It may be difficult to find work locally. Yeah, that could be a disadvantage, because maybe if what you're skilled in, if that product is not in demand, then you might not find work, which is difficult to find work locally. Okay. So that's the reason why that's a disadvantage. What is not normally a function of the central bank? So we have two types of banks. We said we have the commercial. The commercial banks will simply accept deposits. They will do, all the saving schemes. They will do the exchange rates, foreign exchange rates. The central bank, on the other hand, will do all the involvements with the government. They will do national reserves. They will allocate the notes. They will issue the notes and stuff like that. They'll act as a last resort if, for example, the commercial banks become bankrupt, then the central bank will give them money. So, which is normally not a function. Acting as a lender of last resort, that is a function. Issuing notes and coins, that is a function. Operating the government's monetary policy. Now that could also actually be them. Operating the government's monetary. Yeah, they could do that. Monetary policy, they could do it, because monetary policy talks about money supply. Money supply is done by the central bank. Okay. Setting the government's budget, no, that is done by the government, not the central bank. It's according to the government what they want to spend, what they don't want to spend, how much they earn. It's like, do the central bank allocate tax? They don't. It's done by the government. That is an example. Okay, because it's not done by the government. Okay, we move on. It says the table shows how three people, X, Y, and Z, spend their income. Okay, X, Y, and Z, and they're spending their income. So we have food, clothing, and housing. Okay, we have entertainment and leisure. So let's classify each of these goods first. Food, clothing, housing, these are needs. Okay, entertainment, luxury, these are again about luxury goods. It's a want. Unless is again a want. Okay, so the person who will spend the most on luxury goods and entertainment at issue will be the richest, or will be the highest income. So let's look. And the person who is spending the most on food and clothing will be the person who is the one with the lowest income. So you can see person Y is spending 50% in food and clothing. So most likely person Y should have the lowest income. Okay, most likely person Y should have the lower income. Okay, and I think that should be the right answer, because person X, they're spending more on You can see they're spending 25% on entertainment and leisure and 40% on luxury goods. So the answer is this. So Z is the most richest because Z is spending 40% on luxury goods, 40% on entertainment and leisure, and only 20% on food and clothing. So meaning he is rich because he can afford to put all his income into entertainment and leisure. Okay, it doesn't mean he's consuming less needs. This is the proportion of their income, meaning only 20% of their proportion of income can satisfy his foods and clothing and housing. Hence why that is the answer. Okay. A musician has a choice of playing for an orchestra in either Germany or England. Okay. He has a choice between whether you want to play in Germany or you want to play in England. Which combination of incomes and cost of livings is most likely to cause her to choose the German orchestra? Okay, which one will lead her to go to Germany instead of England? Let's see. Pre-tax income. Pre-tax income, if it's higher or it's lower, which is good? Pre-tax income, if it's lower, it's always good. Tax anytime, whenever it's lower, it's always good. Net income. Okay, here of course we have higher, we have no option. And then cost of living has to be low. It can't be high. Who would want a higher cost of living? So the answer is quite straightforward, it's just D. Which type of business organization is necessarily in the public sector of the economy? So the main objective of the public sector is not to not to make profit. Okay, and instead their main objective is to improve the well-being of someone. So a multinational company is not a public sector. Multinational company, this is a corporation that is registered in more than one country, and they want to, it's most likely in the private sector. A public limited good in the private sector, a company that offers shares. Okay, so it just that doesn't mean that because you see public limited goods it's in the public sector. So this is wrong, because a public limited good is a private sector that issues shares to the public. That's why it's called public limited. Public corporation, that is in fact a public sector. Sole trader could be private. Okay, so the answer is public corporation. Public corporation is simply a company that is in the public sector. Okay, they are in the public sector. Okay, move on to question 13. Okay, which combinations of characteristics correctly describes a monopoly? Okay, what's a monopoly? Monopoly is one that dominates. They have economies of scale, which is possible, and the barrier of entry is low. Because there's economies of scale, many people cannot enter into the economy. Sorry, barriers of entry is high, not low. It's high. Because there's high barriers of entry because these people are simply exploiting consumers. Right? Because they're exploiting consumers, it's hard to enter into the economy of someone who is exploiting, because someone who has so much power, entering into their economy will be a task. So the answer here, quite straightforward, is barriers to entry is high and economies of scale is possible. Okay. The table shows the sales of cold drinks made by a company in the UK in 2016 and 2017. So I think this is another question on comparing. It says demand for cold drinks is influenced by changes in the temperature. In 2016, the sales followed the usual seasonal pattern. Okay. So we have usual seasonal patterns. In which month was the usual pattern disturbed? Okay. Let's try to look for a pattern here. Okay. In sales in 2016, it's going 100. Then it's going 150, it's going by 20, and then it's going up by 50 again. Okay, here it is going up by 60, it is going up, it's going down by, okay, so I think maybe there's a problem in June, but let's see. So it's going down by 80. And then again it's going up, so 490, minus 270. It's going up by 220. Then again it's going up by 100. So if you have noticed, all this is positive. Okay, all this is positive. And the only one that's negative is in June. The only one that is negative is in June. So answer is June. As simple as that. You just have to compare and you'll get your answer. Okay, another question. Total fixed cost, variable cost. Another, people find it confusing, but let's see. A firm producing bicycles has the following costs at different levels of output. Okay, so this firm is producing bicycles and they have costs at different levels of output. What happens to the average total cost over this range of output? So we have total fixed cost and we have the total variable cost. How do you calculate average total cost? How do you calculate total cost? First of all, it's just total fixed costs plus total variable costs. Okay, total fixed cost plus total variable cost, and then you divide by the output. So let's first calculate the total cost for everything. So here the total cost will be 111, here it will be 1800, here it will be 3600. Now I divide by 10 here. What's 1100 divided by 10? Let's see, 1100 divided by 10. That is 110. Then what is 1800 divided by 20? It is 90. I think it's falling, but let's see. 3600 divided by 30 is 120. No, it's not falling. Okay, now let's see. It falls continuously. Is it falling continuously? No. It falls then rises. I think this is the answer, because it falls and then it's rising. So the answer is B, because it falls and then it rises. Okay, and this curve would be like this. It would be like a basket. Okay, it will be like a basket. Let me drink some water so my voice doesn't go. Yeah, but yeah. Okay, yeah. So that is 15. Move on to 16. So that's how you do this type of question. You just need to know the formulas for all of them, and then after that it's quite straightforward, isn't it? Okay, number 16. Why are indirect taxes such as VAT of 20% on goods and services described as regressive? What is regressive? This is more burden on poor people when comparing high income and low income purchases. Okay, so what you need to know here is that, first of all, in regressive, high income people, they pay lower tax, but in low income people pay higher tax. So high income purchases will pay a lower percentage of their income tax. Okay, so we're looking for something like that. High income purchases will pay a higher percentage of their income in tax. No. In regressive, they pay lower. So high income purchases pay a lower percentage of their income in tax. That is correct. Okay, and low income people, they pay high income tax, and there's no option like that. So this is wrong, this is wrong. Okay, so therefore they both are wrong. Number 17. The government has an important role in mixed economies. Okay, the government has an important role in mixed economies. Okay, and it says which function do they not perform. So the government is most likely let's see. They have an important role in mixed economies. Mixed economies is when there is the government and there's also producers and consumers. So which function would it not perform? Distributing dividends from profits of state-owned enterprises. Okay, yeah, I think that one looks correct, because dividends are distributed to shareholders by the directors. Okay, and mixed economies, again, we said it combines the aspects of both market and command economy. So it protects private property and allows a level of economic freedom in the use of capital. Employing workers to collect taxes, no, it's not done. This is not done by the government, so wrong. Investing in transport infrastructure, it's not an important role. They do it, but it's not an important role. Producing goods in the public, no, the government does not produce any goods, so the answer is quite straightforward A. Okay. Move on to question 18. Okay. Which combination of policies would be effective in reducing the effect of recession? What happens in a recession? What happens in a recession? Demand falls. In a recession, the demand is falling. So the demand falls. So when demand falls, right? Okay, so which policy would be effective in reducing this? So we need to increase demand. So we need to look at policies which will increase demand. So let's see, a reduction in interest rates. If there's a reduction in interest rates, people will borrow more. So this would be correct. And a reduction in income tax. A reduction in income tax would mean that people will start spending more, which will increase demand. So even this is correct, so the answer is A. Quite straightforward. But let's look at the other options. A reduction in interest rates, that's correct. An increase in income tax, that is wrong, because if you increase income tax, demand will fall because disposable income will decrease. So this is wrong. An increase in interest rates, that is again correct. A reduction in income tax. Now a reduction in income tax. It says an increase. So an increase in interest rates is wrong. We need to decrease the interest rates, because if we increase interest rates, people will start saving more, which will lead to demand falling. And a reduction in income tax, which is correct, but it makes the entire thing wrong because one of them is wrong. An increase in interest rates again is wrong. An increase in income tax is wrong again. So totally wrong in this one. Okay, so that makes A the answer. Now, how would a government spending on education be classified? Okay, education will mean improving skills, which the skills will later on mean to supply side policy. So we know that now. Now, government is spending. Isn't that fiscal policy? So the answer is C. Okay, because fiscal policy is when they spend. Okay, it's when they spend. Hence why 19 is C. Okay, which increase is most likely to cause a rise in the output of an economy? Okay, so which increase is most likely to cause a rise in the output of an economy? Let's see. So we want a rise in the output. Okay, investment could be the answer, but let's see. Yeah, it could be. Actually, it is investment, because investment we know is investment in capital goods. Investment in capital goods will increase output, because maybe if we buy machinery, they'll be more effective, hence there will be a rise in the output. Hyperinflation, no, this is going to increase the price, which would be wrong. Income taxes increase, no. Okay, nothing related to that involves output. Okay, because income taxes will reduce disposable income and demand will fall, output will fall. Interest rates increase or decrease, it depends, right? So it doesn't really matter on the output. Okay, why was the Human Development Index, HDI, introduced as a measure of the standard of living? So why was HDI introduced as a measure of the standard of living? Education and healthcare are important contributors to the standard of living. Okay, yeah, it's correct. That is correct. But let's just put a tick, maybe not. GDP per head only measures development. No, that's wrong. GDP measures so many other factors. If you don't remember the factors, I made a whole video on GDP and stuff like that. So that's that. Inequality can only be measured by HDI. No, not really. Inequality, there are many ways you can measure inequality. Here you would say the expenditure and this and that. So no. Literacy rates are not effective measure of standards of living. No. So the best answer would be education and healthcare are important contributors of standard of living. Actually, even in paper 2, they asked you to mention standards of living. So here is where you would say education, healthcare is part of standard of living. Okay. Number 22. During periods of high unemployment across the entire labor force, the highest unemployment rate in an economy is often in a 16 to 19-year-old group. Okay. Now, explain which statements explains why 16 to 19 years old might find it difficult. Why do these people find it less? Why do they find it difficult? Maybe because they don't have enough skills. Maybe they don't have enough skills, because as time goes they get skills. So the incentive to earn an income is low. That's wrong. Many people want to earn, but they might not have the education, the training required. Their wages are lower than those of adults. Again, that's wrong. If it's not true. They could have higher. They lack both work experience and necessary skills. Yeah, that's the best answer, because they don't have enough experience to get those skills. Hence why that will be the answer. Okay, Venezuela, a leading world oil producer, has experienced hyperinflation. What is hyperinflation? What is hyperinflation? This term has come out twice. Okay, but when there is hyperinflation, okay, which simply means that the money loses its function of store of value, okay, and it's not able to retain its value. Okay, is what it simply means. Okay, so it says how does hyperinflation affect the economy? The prices will rise so much, and you see the money has such little worth. Okay, so which concept tells us that? The prices don't fluctuate in hyperinflation. They don't fluctuate. So these two are wrong. The rises do rapidly rise, and the value of fixed assets remains stable. They don't. Okay, I have $5 in hyperinflation. I will not even buy a lollipop, and that an example would be that, because the prices keep changing, because they has no value anymore. That price does not have any value. The money does not hold any value. Okay, what is most likely to increase as country becomes more developed? So a country is becoming more developed, what increases? Now, as a country becomes more developed, average income and GDP rises. Okay, so anything related to that, income increases, so on and so forth. So average household increases, that is correct. Okay, average household income increases. What this means is that the household income is increasing because I have higher employment, and the GDP is increasing. Average size of family, that is wrong, because we also know that in countries that are not developed, the population is such high because they use the kids as labor so that they can make money, right? So that's wrong. Infant mortality rate, this is the death rates, again doesn't matter. It will increase in less developed proportion of income spent in food. Again, food is a need, right? Food is a need, and people will start in less developed, people spend more on this, but this does not make it more developed, so that is wrong. Okay, number 25, it says in Botswana, better healthcare has meant that the birth rates have been falling faster than death rates. Okay, so what's happening here? The birth rates have been falling faster than death rates, and also the number of children born on average to each woman has declined from 6.4 to 3.2. What may be concluded from this information? Government spending on education will need to increase, but isn't there's no mention on current government spending on education, so you can't make a statement on this. But also the children have decreased, so who will they spend it on? So that's wrong. Medical improvements have resulted in falling infant mortality rates. That could be the answer, because there's a increase in improvements, that's why there is a decrease in the birth rate. So that's always usually the reason. Usually there's the only reason, or most of the reasons, or most of the times in economics, when they say there's a fall in birth rate, it is because of medical improvements, because of use of contraceptives, because better healthcare, better information, so on and so forth, and that's why there's a fall in birth rates. So hence why that's the answer. There will be a decline in income. Again, that does not really matter. Actually, it will increase because the women who were previously, they now focus more on their career, which could also mean that the birth rates decrease. There'll be, in the long run, there'll be an increase in the working population. No, it's decreasing. Okay, maybe in the long run it will increase, but again, you cannot conclude this information from when they tell us only birth rates are decreasing. So you can't really tell a lot about working population. Okay, so yeah, the table shows the percentage share of GDP held by the richest 20% and the poorest 20%. So we have the richest 20%, poor 20% of the population in each country. Which country had the greatest extremes of income and poverty? So which country had the greatest extremes of income and poverty? So we have these countries: Ghana, Nigeria, Senegal, South Africa. Okay, and these are the richest 20%, poorest 20%. Which one has the greatest income? So this one is the greatest gap between each other. So which one has the greatest gap? I think you can see South Africa has a big gap. Okay, what's the gap in Ghana? Let's see. Ghana 47. Let's see. Here the gap is 33.3%. And then here the gap is 51.3. And the gap, what I'm just doing is the richest 20% minus the poorest 20%. So here it's 41.8. And then finally 64.8 minus 2.9 is 61.9. So you can see in South Africa the gap is the greatest, which simply means there's the greatest incomes of income and poverty. So there's a lot of people who are rich, but at the same time there's a lot of people that are poor, which means that the income redistribution is really bad, and the government has to fix that because it's part of the objective of that. Okay. Number 27, what would cause a favorable change in the Kenyan trade in services? Invisible account. What would cause a favorable change in the Kenyan trade in services? So remember I explained how to calculate trade in services. It is simply exports minus imports in the services. Okay, so if I want to increase this, cause a favorable, I need to increase exports. I need to somehow increase exports. Okay, that will make my account increase. Okay, so let's see. A Kenyan company wins a contract to transport exports from Uganda. That's correct. That will be like a guaranteed transport of exports. So that's correct. Okay, a Kenyan tea company increases exports. This again will not affect, because you see, goods will still, although a Kenyan company is exporting Uganda's goods, it's important to realize that the money earned for the transportation of these goods will be repatriated back to Kenya. This will make Kenya's exports rise. Okay, so the best option would be A, because this option, increase exports, will still have to do transportation costs, so on and so forth. So the most favorable change would be A. Okay. What is the disadvantage of trade protection of manufactured goods? Trade protection is when you do all these tariffs, so on and so forth, embargoes, quotas. Okay, that's what trade protection. Trade protection is any attempt by a country to impose restrictions on open trade in goods and services, like tariffs, as I said, quotas, so on and so forth. So what's the disadvantage of this? Let's see. It can lead to retaliation of trading partners. That's correct, because if you impose barriers on another country, no one is gonna like that. So it's always gonna be a retaliation of trading partners. Okay, so it encourages infant industries to grow. That is an advantage, not a disadvantage. It increases demand for domestic. That is again an advantage, not a disadvantage. Reduces outflows of currencies. Again, not a disadvantage of trade protection. Okay, 29. What would cause a rise in the deficit on the current account of balance of payments? So we're looking here. What would cause a rise in the deficit on the current account of balance of payments? So what will cause a rise? So here, what's a deficit on current account? That means imports are up, then exports, and exports are lower. Okay. So it says a fall in foreign direct investment into a currency. If there's a fall in the investment, okay, if there's a fall in the investment, okay, then that means basically investment by multinationals fall. Okay, if the things fall, then the exports will reduce. So this will be a disadvantage. Okay, it will not cause a rise. Imports, when the reason imports increase is when maybe, okay, look here. So a fall in interest earned on overseas investment by the country. Yeah, that's correct. Because a fall in interest rates earned on overseas investment by the country. If there's a fall in the interest earned on overseas investment, meaning exports fall, right? That will mean people will start importing more. Which will lead to a current account deficit. Now, finally, number 30. What would reduce the volume of international trade in a world economy? What will reduce the volume of international trade? Retaliation is simply when you just retract. It comes from the name retaliation. I will no longer work with the partner. Okay, is what it means. It can lead to retaliation. So we are no more friends. The trading partners are no more friends. Okay, so what would reduce the volume of international trade? Okay, what will reduce to this? Now, here what we have is that Let's see, what would reduce the volume of international trade? So maybe like something like a quota or something like that will make international trade lower. International trade is when we start doing exchange with other countries. Okay, so a German bank making a loan to Nigerian company, this doesn't affect international trade because we are making a simple loan, so it will not reduce international trade. Japanese car manufacturer establishing a factory in Czech Republic, this is not reducing the international trade, this is increasing, because now this Japanese car is now giving their cars to Czech Republic, hence that is not reducing. A Canadian government introducing quotas, that is correct. Whenever you're imposing quotas or tariffs or barriers, international trade will always fall. Okay, and hence why that is the answer. So that marks the end of this paper. Hopefully there's no. This was a quite straightforward paper too. Not bad. It was not bad. It was not bad. It was just you see, it's the usual questions, I think, and some of the questions are quite. Um, some of the questions are quite like similar, right? From the three papers we have done, they're quite similar. Okay, they are quite similar. Okay. Okay, we continue. We continue. I'm not stopping, guys. I'm not stopping. I am not stopping. Let me drink water. My voice is gone. Okay, we'll have like a 2 minute, 3 minute break. I've been talking for so long. How long has this stream been for? 3 hours? Yeah, 3 hours. Exactly 3 hours. So our pace is a bit slow because we have done three papers in 3 hours, which is quite slow. 1 hour every paper, which is quite slow. But it's fine. This is revision. Of course, in the exam you won't be talking this much, right? You won't be going over all the answers, so that's not a problem. I want to do May June now. May June, the May June one for variant 2. This one is the next one. This one is the next one that we are going to be having a look at. Okay. Okay, hopefully this is helpful, guys. I'm trying to do as many questions as I can. Hopefully this is helpful for the people sitting May June, and all that type of things. Can you do the Feb March paper? Is it the Feb March 2022 that paper or what? I'm planning to make a video just on that, like separate video instead of doing the paper in this live stream. I'm deciding maybe I'll just do a separate video because I know people want to see that, because I don't think there's any marking scheme for that. Hence why I think it'll take a bit more time, yeah. Because you see, in economics, every answer could be right, so you really have to think, yeah. But I'll make a separate video on that, so don't worry about that. Okay, so don't worry about that. But we shall see, yeah. We shall see. I mean, let's see. Okay, guys. Give me 2 minutes. I'll be back. Just give me 2 minutes. I'll get some water and come back. Okay, yeah. So let's get back into this. Okay, so 2019 now, right? 2019. Okay, let's do this paper now. Let's do this paper. Again, the first question is on factors of production, so like the usual. It's usual on factors of production. Okay, let's do this question now. Let's be a bit faster this time. But yeah, let's see. So a government wishes to increase agricultural output. Okay, agricultural output is land. Agricultural output is land. Okay. It gives farmers the tools to irrigate the farmers' fields, and they want to increase land. Okay, so which factors of production are provided by the farmers? These farmers will give them land. So okay, and they will give them. It gives the farmers tools. So it's giving the farmers tools, and they have land. Okay. So that means, sorry, but the capital is being given by the government, right? So this tool, it's given by government. Okay, it's not given by the farmers. So what the farmers are going to give, they will give you land, and they will give you the labor. They will give you the labor of making this certain agricultural good. So the answer will be land and labor. Okay. Because it says the government is going to give the tools, so it's not the farmers giving the tool, so there's no capital involved, but tool is a capital, and these tools will be given by the government. Okay, yeah, okay. The diagram shows a production possibility curve for an economy that produces both capital goods and consumer goods. Okay, so another PPC curve. So if you've noticed the trend, we usually have factors of production question, then we have a question on PPC curves. So yeah, so it says the diagram shows the production possibility curve for an economy that produces both capital goods and consumer goods. At which point will the economy show the highest potential for sustained long run economic growth? So we need highest potential for sustained long run economic growth. So which one? So okay, now what does the PPC show? The PPC shows the maximum possible output of two combinations of goods or services an economy can achieve, okay, when all the resources are fully and efficiently used. Okay, now let's go over each of the points. You see, at point B, there is the most capital, and the most capital will simply mean investment in capital goods allows long run economic growth. Anytime you will, invest into capital goods, there will be an increase, and this will eventually lead to an output shift, because of course the output will increase, the productive capacity will increase. Anytime we do capital investment, the output will increase, the productive capacity will increase. Okay, so hence why in the long run, if we invest in capital good, there will be highest potential for that. Okay. In recent years, more golf courses which use large quantities of water have opened in China. So they're using water. Okay, and yeah. Okay, so let's see. What may be the opportunity cost of this? So opportunity cost is what we have lost. What we have lost. Always keep that in mind. It's what we have lost. That is what we mean by opportunity cost. So in here it says we're using water. So what have we lost from using water? The cost of water? We haven't lost the cost of water, don't we? We haven't lost the cost of water. The loss of farmhand. Yeah, this is a loss. It could be maybe the golf course where they're making it's on the farmhand land. So this could be a possibility. But let's see, the sales of golf equipment, that is not a loss, that is a gain. Wages, again, that is a gain. So the answer is B. Okay, we could use that farmland to make output of goods and services rather than use it as a golf course. Okay, so hence why that's what opportunity cost is, what we have lost. Number 4, Cuba is implementing a free market reforms. So free market, remember, producers and consumers. So the free market is a place where there's only producers and consumers. Okay, so what is a likely advantages of this? What's the advantage of free market? A wider variety of, this came in paper 2, by the way, in the May-June 2022 paper 2. This came in it. A wider variety of goods and services are produced. Is that an advantage? That's an advantage. That's actually correct. It makes sense. But again, like we said, we always read each of the questions. Oops, sorry guys. Yeah. Where is it? Here. Okay, yeah. So what we're saying is there will be more variety of goods and services because they listen to the consumers. They listen to the consumers, the demand for the consumers, right? And hence why there is quite a variety of goods. But let's look at the other. Okay, let's see. Greater equality between different groups of society. That doesn't involve free market reforms, do they? Increased provision of public goods. That's wrong because it's the opposite. There's a decrease because no one wants to give public goods now because there's no government. There's no government intervention. Because there's no government intervention, there will be no one producing this. There will be no one providing these public goods. Less consumption of goods with external costs. Again, this is wrong. There will be people don't care about external costs in a market because in a market economy because first of all, external costs involve pollution. That's an example. And an example of external costs would be pollution, right? So people don't really care about this pollution. They don't care about the pollution. Hence why answer is A. Okay, an airline upgrades its services by providing a bigger aircraft. Okay, the airline claims it will reduce catering waste and lower carbon emissions per passenger, although fares may rise. Okay, what is the private cost? Okay, so what you need to know here is we have private costs. Private costs are what? Private costs are simply, these are just costs that a firm has to pay in order to produce the goods and services. Okay, so the private cost for the individual or the firm, they have to pay. So in this case, it would be the fact that they have to pay for the higher wages, which is a cost, which is bad. Okay, there will be higher fares, not a bigger aircraft. They don't have to pay the cost of a bigger aircraft, or maybe they do actually. So it could be this. Could be this actually, because the firms could buy this. So it could be that. An external benefit is low CO2. External benefit is simply the people that benefit from the consumption or production of goods and services without actually taking part in it. Okay, like this, if there's less CO2, it will always be better for me. Even if I'm not using the airplane, it will always be good for me. Okay, so hence why that is that. What can be concluded from the demand curve for the product shown? It basically shows that it simply just shows this curve. You can see it's straight. It's saying the willingness of what is demand. First of all, demand is the willingness and ability to buy a product at a particular price. Okay, now as price increases, let's read the instructions. As price increases, this will raise the producer's revenue. In fact, that is correct, because you see in this, the good thing about here is that the price, as price increases, it will raise the revenue, because revenue is the price times the quantity. Okay, it's the price times the quantity. So what it says is that if the price increases, revenue would also increase, because quantity demanded is the same. Nothing is happening to demand. So if I increase price, I'm going to get more revenue no matter that. So it's always the same, right? Let me just quickly zoom in. Yeah, so it's always the same, because you see quantity demanded is the same. It's not changing. Hence why if it's the same, then then the revenue will increase, because I can increase price and I'll still get my money back. Okay, I can still get my money back. Alright, number 7, a mobile cell phone operator increases the price of making calls on its networks. After the price increases, the revenue of the mobile phone operator falls by 10%. Okay, so what's happening here? It says this mobile phone operator increases the price. Okay, after the price increases, the revenue of the mobile phone operator falls by 10%. Okay, it says what is the price elasticity of demand? Is it elastic? Is it inelastic? Is it unit elastic? Now we don't know how much he's changed the price, but the revenue has fallen by 10%. Okay, which is quite significant, meaning it is elastic. Meaning I've changed the demand and it's fallen by 10%. My revenue has fallen by 10%. What that means is my quantity demanded has fallen. Okay, so the answer is just A there. Now, why does specialization increase the productivity of employees? Why does specialization increase the productivity of employees? Okay. Yeah. So now, why does specialization increase the productivity of employees? Let's see. Average cost of the production increases. Average cost of the production increases. What does that mean? That means there's diseconomies of scale. That doesn't really matter. If average cost of the production increases, doesn't really matter. Staff turnover is high. Again, doesn't matter. Okay, staff turnover. This term right here, staff turnover. What does that mean? Now, staff turnover, right? It doesn't involve, but let's look at the other options actually, because I haven't heard of the term staff turnover. But let's see. Time is saved by not moving between tasks. Yeah, that is correct, because what specialization means is you are doing one task. This task is split and you're doing one task. Okay, there's one task, so there's no time is saved, right? Because you're just doing one task again and again and again. It's just repetitive, but it's again and again. You just keep on doing it. Okay, again and again, right? So hence why the time is saved by not moving between the tasks. Okay, number 9. In recent years, some central banks have reduced interest rates below 1% per year. Okay, so in recent years, these central banks have reduced interest rates below 1% per year. So the interest rates are below. What is the purpose of the monetary policy? I have decreased interest rates. Interest rates have fallen. What happens when I reduce interest rates? If I reduce interest rates, people will start borrowing more. Borrowing increases. Okay. So let's see. What is the purpose of this policy? To discourage lending by commercial banks. By discouraging, no, because this is the opposite, because this is encouraging people to borrow more. To encourage investment. If you, this is the answer, because whenever interest rates have fallen, we know that investments increase. So whenever there's a fall in interest rates, there's always an increase in investments, because everyone borrows and you don't have to pay less back. So this is the perfect time where you invest. To increase individual savings, no. You only save when there's high interest rates. Here there's a fall in interest rates, so it's the opposite. To reduce inflation will actually be the opposite, because inflation could be either because of demand. So maybe if there's a rise in demand, but you see here, if you borrow more, the demand will increase because I'll have more income to spend. So it'll be the opposite of what you want. So again, that's wrong. Okay, so again, that's wrong. Okay, number 10, it says, what is the most important factor that affects how much a family saves? So here we're looking at factors affecting saving. Okay, so what is the factors affecting saving? Okay, why do people save? One could be interest rates. Okay, one could be maybe in the future you want to buy something big, so you save so you can get the interest rates. But let's see, what is the most important factor? The income of a family. Actually, that could be one. Okay, because it says, they say, right, if you have a higher income, you save more. So this could be a possibility, but let's look at all of them. The level of taxation, that doesn't really matter. How does taxation affect saving? Doesn't matter. Rate of inflation. The rate of inflation, not a factor again, because in the inflation prices are high, so saving wouldn't really matter. Reliability of banks again doesn't matter, so the best option would be A. Okay, move on to number 11. Oops, that blurred it. Okay. The table shows the changes in real incomes of a number of occupations between 1985 and 2015. So between 1985 and 2015, we have some changes in income. So you can see the doctors, there's a big change in income compared to the other people. What could be concluded from the table? All occupations were better off in 2015 than in 1985. Not really, because the forklift drivers, it's fallen, so that's wrong. The forklift driver earned the lowest wages in 2015. Now necessarily we cannot derive that, because we can't tell. Okay, we can't tell that because we don't know how much they used to earn before, and this data is only to compare, so we don't know. They might even have higher wages, we don't know. But it's not enough information. Doctors have earned more than lawyers since 1985. Doctors have earned, again, not enough information. We don't know how much the doctors used to earn. We don't know how much the lawyers used to earn. We only know the change in income. Professionals received higher percentage increase in income than manual workers. That is correct. If you have noticed, doctors, lawyers, accountants all have a higher change in real income compared to people who are doing manual workers. So that's quite straightforward question. Okay, that is a quite straightforward question. Okay, we move on to number 12. Number 12 says, what is the main difference between capital intensive production and labor intensive production? Now the difference between capital intensive is when we use machinery, when we use capital. Okay, while labor intensive is when we use workers. We use workers in our production so that we can get goods and services. Okay, that's the main difference between the two. Okay, that is the okay. I think taxation can matter because if tax increases, disposable income would fall, leading to less saving. What question was that? Level of taxation. Now, but it will not matter saving, isn't it? Because if we level of taxation, they haven't. Okay, for example, yeah, as you said, if tax increases the disposable income, no, tax decreases disposable income. Okay, for example, you increase tax, that will mean disposable income would fall. Okay, which will lead to less saving. But remember here, it's the most important factor. Okay, it's the most important factor. And you see, indirectly you just said that if there is a fall there is an increase in taxation, there's a fall in income. And what's a fall in income? The income of the family. So taxation could be a factor, as I say in economics, it could be a factor, but which is the most important factor? The income of the family. Right, you got that? Because A talks about the income of the family, and level of taxation, of course, it'll affect the income, but the most important factor is income, because we have so many other factors that contribute to income, not only taxation, right? So that's why. So that was the answer. Okay, what is the main difference between capital intensive and labor intensive? Okay, so let's see. The market structure of the production process. Now, not necessarily. The market structure of the production process, not necessarily. The output that the production process creates, they create the same thing no matter which one you use. The resources on which the production relies, again, that's correct. Now, maybe the capital need a certain type of resource, while the workers don't. Okay, hence why there are differences between the two. Now, what is the definition of diseconomies of scale? This is when there's an increase in average cost. Increase in average cost is what it simply means. Anytime we talk about diseconomies of scale, always mention average costs. So here we're just looking for average costs, and I can see C is average cost, straightforward. Nothing else you need to look at. Economies of scale always talk about average costs. Always talk about average cost. That's the thing you need to understand. Average cost in diseconomies of scale. Okay, the diagram shows the fixed cost, variable cost, and total cost of a firm. Which distance represents the firm's fixed cost? Fixed cost is the same throughout, and you see Y looks like the same. Have you noticed, guys? Y is the same throughout, and it doesn't change. Okay, it doesn't change. So what doesn't change? Fixed cost is the one that's the same. And actually W and X is the same throughout. If you've noticed, X is going up, W is going up at the same rate. So this is the fixed cost. So WX is the fixed cost because it's the same. Fixed cost is when it's fixed, as it says from the name. Fixed cost is when it's fixed, and you can see the cost of W, cost of X is the same, hence the fixed cost is the difference between these two. That is the fixed cost. That is the fixed cost. Okay, an entrepreneur buys a workshop for $200,000 to make plastic boxes. In the first year of the operation, he spent $70,000 on materials. He then employs 10 production workers paid by the amount produced at the total cost of $80,000, and then he buys 2 delivery vehicles for $10,000 each. What is the variable cost? Now, how do you calculate variable cost? Okay, how do you calculate variable cost? So here we have materials, which is 70k. Okay, so we have materials, which is 70k, which is right here, because he's spending that much on the materials. Then it says that we have the workers, which is 80k. So the total variable cost is simply 70k plus 80k, which is for the workers, which is 150k. Let me explain this more. So you will not include the cost of buying the workshop and the delivery vehicle because those are fixed costs. Those will be the same. Okay, those are the fixed costs. And if you were there in the first paper I did, I explained what it meant. Fixed costs can also be there even if I have not did any output. Okay, it can be there even if I have zero output, because rent is an example of fixed cost. So the example here that you will take is 150. So you are only including 70,000 on materials and $80,000, not the vehicles, delivery vehicles, because that is fixed cost, and not the workshop. It's not involving anything related to output. Okay, that's why. Now, what is most likely to cause a rise in the rate of inflation of an economy? Rise in inflation could be due to demand increasing. Fall in input price, no, that's not gonna fall in input price will mean people will start importing more, so meaning the demand for that will increase, but it will not increase the rate of inflation. So that's wrong. A fall in rate wages, that means people will have a lower disposable income, demand will fall. A rise in the level of government spending, yep, that will increase. Anytime, you need to remember this rule, anytime there is government spending, okay, remember this rule, anytime there is government spending, there is always a rise in demand. Okay, you just need to know these factors. Okay, rise in unemployment would mean there lower disposable income, which will mean lower demand. Okay, we go to number 17. Number 17, it says the government increases taxation in order to fund an increase in spending on government training schemes. So this government is increasing taxation in order to fund an increase in the government increase in spending on the government training schemes. Which policy combination would this involve? So we are increase in spending, which is fiscal, and this is training scheme, which is supply side policy. So fiscal policy, supply side policy. There is no monetary. Monetary involves money supply, which is usually done by the bank, or interest rates. But here we have none of that. Fiscal policy involves government spending and tax. And then supply side policy is anything to increase the supply, and you increase the supply of something. So you giving money on training schemes would mean people will start getting skills, which will increase employment, which will increase supply. The diagram shows the effect of the imposition of a tax on a product. Which area represents the part of tax paid by the consumers of a product? Okay, so tax, of course, tax will be paid by the consumer, isn't it? Tax is paid by the consumer. Now, producer's burden of tax. Okay, how much will the producer pay? Okay, how much will the producer pay? So for example, let's do this. Let's mark this as P2. Let's mark this as P1. Okay, because we have Q2 and Q1, right? So we have that. So we have P2 and we have P1. Now, the producer's burden of tax, okay, the producer's burden of tax will be this region right here, x plus y. Okay, why is that? Now look, because they're in supplying, they're moving from Q1 to Q2. They're going from Q1 to Q2. Okay, they're playing that. So these guys are asking us which area of the part of tax is paid by the consumers. Okay, the consumers. Now this is a quite complicated question, right? The consumers, they only care about what the demand, in the demand curve, how much they are affecting. So from Q2, okay, which is here, okay, which is here. Okay, so for the producers, what I said previously, the producers, their burden of tax is x plus y, which is this region here. If I take a highlighter, is this region here. This is the burden of the producer's tax, okay, which is x plus y. They have to pay this much tax, x plus y. Okay, and the reason to this, right, the reason to this is because the price before tax minus the price after tax. Okay, the price before tax minus the price after tax. Okay, so the price before the tax and the price after the tax is this change here, because the change in price, there's a change in price. So this much xy is done by the producer, and then uv is done by the consumer. So xy is before, is the first price, it's P1, and then after that it is paid by the consumer, which is u plus v. I don't know, this is a bit more complicated. Let me explain that again. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is that there's price P1 here, price P2 here. P1 is paid by the producers, P2 is paid by the consumers. The P1 to P2, the difference is these two. This is paid by the producers, this is paid by the consumers, because P2 is after. They pay tax after the product is done, isn't it? So they pay tax after the supply is done, after the supply shifted from S1 to S2. They pay it after, hence why it's a U plus V. So this is the region they have to pay. Okay. So they have to pay this region here, U plus V. A bit challenging, but yeah, U plus V. Why might a government decide to subsidize high-cost steel industries? Maybe because of, let's see. If you want to, anytime a government subsidizes, it's either to lower cost of production. Okay, so if cheaper imports of steel are improving the balance of payments, so let's see. No, that will not matter. Okay, that will not matter. If cheaper imports of steel are improving the balance of payments, no. If economic growth is increasing due to the success of industries, if it is increasing, then why would you produce a subsidy? If you already have economic growth, you will not want to produce. If redundant steel workers can easily be retrained, if they can easily be retrained, then why subsidize the industry? So no. If unemployment in steel producing areas is increasing, if unemployment is increasing, that is bad for the government. The government never wants unemployment, so they have to fix it by subsidizing. If they subsidize, then cost of production fall, employment rises because they can afford them. Okay, a table shows the possible sequences between the rate of interest and other economic variables. Which sequence is most likely? Okay, so the table is now showing the possible sequences of the rate of interest, okay, and the other economic variables. So which sequence is most likely? So if there's a higher interest rate, okay, what will happen to borrowing? Borrowing will decrease. That is correct. So this is wrong. Borrowing will decrease if there's a high interest rate. People will start saving more. Investments increases. Do investment increase? That's wrong. So this is wrong. So the first two are wrong. Okay, we move on to the next two. Okay, there's low interest rates. What happens to borrowing? Borrowing will increase. So the answer is the last one. This one you just follow the chain and see. Anytime there's lower interest rate, there's more borrowing because you have to pay less. We have done this type of question. Why is the HDI a better measure of living standards than GDP per head? Because HDI, right? Because HDI, they take into account of the health and education data. We said that healthcare and education data. So the HDI takes involved of healthcare and education, and then of course income. What describes frictional unemployment? Frictional unemployment is, we have explained this in the previous one, so I'm not going to keep explaining it. It's frictional unemployment is when you're looking for the next job. Okay, when you're looking for the next job. Okay, so I'm not going to waste time explaining everything. I explained it already throughout the video, so if you've watched the other parts of the video, then you'll understand. In January 2016, the rate of inflation in a country changed from 3% to 2%. In March 2016, the rate of inflation was 4%. What happened to the price level in January and March? Okay, so the inflation is decreasing. Okay, but the rate of inflation in March, it was increasing. Okay, so what's happening here? In January, when inflation decreases from 3% to 2%, prices are still rising, but at 2%, this is when it's called disinflation. So in January, prices levels is increased. Okay, so the prices are increased, but it is still rising. Okay, so the price level would not only decrease if inflation rate was less than that 0%, the negative percent. Okay, so what is disinflation? Disinflation is when the inflation at a decreasing rate. Okay, there's still inflation, but it is decreasing. Okay, so what that means is that even if there's 2% inflation, the prices are still rising. Okay, so in both of them they will rise. It's a tricky question, but both of them will rise. Even if there's 2% inflation, the prices are still high. Okay, what usually happens as a developing country becomes more developed? Let's see. Average age of the population falls. Now this factor isn't decided. You can't decide that. Fertility rate declines. Yeah, that is correct. Fertility rate is simply, this is because the family planning becomes better, more common, as common people want to maintain a higher standard of living, hence why it will be improved. Infant mortality rate increases. No, it decreases because people have improved health facilities. Primary sector expands. No, tertiary sector expands. Primary sector is agricultural stuff and stuff like that. Primary sector involves like agriculture and all that. This one falls. This one's usually in low income countries. Given the following information, which country is likely to have the highest standard of living? Let's see. So the death rate should be the lowest. So we can see this, and this has the lowest death rate. Life expectancy should be higher. It's the highest here. Infant mortality rate. I think this should be the last one. The last one looks like it's the best because infant mortality rate is how much they die at. So D is the right answer. In a country, the birth rate increased, but the population decreased. What could be? Okay, maybe the death rates could increase. Death rates could have increased. So let's see. The fall in infant mortality, but no change in death rate. The death rate fell, but no change in migration. Okay, maybe people could have also migrated, by the way. But let's see. So anything related to death rates increasing, and I can see this one, death rates are increasing and no change in migration. So this would be the answer. Because death rates are increasing, population decreases. Okay, and if there was migration, then also that will decrease population. The US government decides to reduce the size of the quota on goods buying its own Chinese. So what will happen? So if the quota reduces, quota is the number. If this reduces, right? If quota is a trade barrier, so it restricts free trade. So it is simply a limit on the volume of imports. So if this decreases, there will be less of the good imported, which is this right here. Okay, because there's less value, less amount now, less amount. So if there's less amount, there'll be less import. Okay, so less good imported. Okay. So that is that. 28, the world demand for oil is price inelastic. Price inelastic, what does that mean? It's because there's no significant change in demand. And oil is paid for in US dollars. If the price of oil rapidly falls, how much it affects the exchange rate of demand? So now whenever there's a fall in demand, price of oil falls, demand will increase. And whenever demand increases, an exchange rate will always, the value will always increase. But the market for the US dollar will less demand for the dollar. Sorry, if the price of oil falls rapidly, what will happen to the exchange dollar? Because it's price inelastic, that's the key word. Okay, because it is inelastic meaning there'll be less demand. So the answer is C, not less supply, less demand. And whenever there's less demand, always know whenever there's less demand, there is a fall in the exchange rate. Whenever there's a rise in demand, there's a increase in exchange rate. What is most likely a disadvantage of international specialization? We talked about this. Whenever people specialize internationally, the disadvantage is, let's see, decreased levels of global output. Is that a disadvantage? Decreased level of global output. This is increased level of global output. So therefore it's wrong. Okay. That's actually a benefit. So increased average production costs. Increased average production cost. This focuses on what they're best at producing. So increased average production cost, again, this would be wrong because specialization is when what they're best at. So it can't be increased efforts of that. Increased productivity levels, that's correct. Okay, what is most likely the disadvantage? Oh, sorry, that's not this is an advantage. That is an advantage. So hence why the answer would be D, because over dependency on other economies, because people will import more. Okay, people will import more. So people will import more because they specialize in a certain product. Okay, so the last question, and I think that will mark the end of the live stream, but let's see. A large amount of the agricultural products in a country were damaged by floods. Okay, what is the most likely to happen to the price? So if they fall, meaning less goods available, meaning they're more scarce. If they're more scarce, what happens? Of course the price will rise. The price will of course rise because there's few, and the volume of imports will also rise because it'll be cheaper in other countries, isn't it? So hence why it'll be this. So people will start importing more on the other goods because of the fact that it might be cheaper, but the price of the products will increase, okay, in a particular product. Anyway, that marks the end of this paper and the end of this live stream. I did a couple of papers. Hopefully it helped you in your revision. I'll be uploading this live stream after I end this live stream, so hopefully this was helpful. I don't know, guys, I might do topic based questions, like maybe like fixed cost, variable cost types of questions, because that's sometimes a bit challenging. But yeah, with that being said, I think I'm hoping this helped you in your revision. And thank you guys for watching this video. Thank you for watching it through. And yeah, I'll see you in the other videos, in the science MCQ videos if you do the sciences, and also of course economics videos. I'll do some other videos on those before the exam. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next stream or the